Are you searching for the best in online black radio? Then go to blacktalkradionetwork.com, helping you filter through the noise. Real talk, black talk.
Here, British scientists say they've achieved a world first by creating human sperm in a laboratory. The team say its research raises the prospect of new treatments for male infertility. But some medical experts are questioning the breakthrough, while groups opposed to stem cell research say the work is unethical. Our medical correspondent, Fergus Walsh, has this report.
Scientists in Newcastle believe they've achieved a world first, the creation of human sperm in the laboratory. They were developed from stem cells derived from a donated human embryo. Scientists grew the sperm in a dish for up to 6 weeks, by which time they say they'd become fully mature and could move. The human sperm created here cannot be used to create life. UK law already prohibits their use in fertility treatment. But the team here in Newcastle say that once the technique is shown to be safe and reliable, it should be permitted to help overcome male infertility.
We hope to provide a technique in 5 to 7 years to help infertile men to have the children.
Other experts in the field have cast doubt on the breakthrough, arguing that although early sperm cells have been produced, they do not appear to be fully developed. While those opposed to the destruction of embryos say the research is unethical. The Newcastle scientists say for the moment their main aim is to advance the understanding of male infertility and why some genetic diseases are passed from one generation to the next. Fergus Walsh, BBC News.
I mean, potentially, how much of a breakthrough is this?
Well, this would be a huge breakthrough for any man who cannot produce sperm himself. It is his only hope of having his own genetic child. Up to now, of course, they've had to rely on donor sperm. However, we don't know for sure that these sperm are capable of fertilizing an egg, and that is, after all, the function of a sperm. These may look like sperm, they may wriggle like sperm, but can they do the sperm's job? And we just don't know enough yet about this research to conclude that that is what they've done.
And in terms of science and the law, the ethics of all this, Gerard mentioned there may have to be a change in the law if this kind of research is to be pushed further.
Oh yes, because these come from embryonic stem cells. There are all kinds of biological processes that have been involved that would require a change in the law to allow reproduction through these artificial methods, if you like. And it's important to remember that these haven't been shown to be safe, but this team has produced mice through this technique in the past, but these mice did have health problems. They had breathing problems and so on, and there have been huge problems with cloning as well. So when you're creating life through these slightly artificial means, you have to be absolutely sure that the offspring are healthy and there are no other problems before you can actually go anywhere near doing this in humans.
So well, I wanted to ask you that, Thomas. I mean, how far away are we from some of the lurid headlines we've seen in the papers this morning saying, a world without men, you don't need them anymore, we can create sperm artificially?
Many people would argue that there are many reasons for having men on the planet. Their sperm is just one of them.
Many would argue there's many reasons for not having it.
There are psychological, there are emotional reasons for having men involved in parenthood, raising children, many people would say. And of course there are also the factors of the whole philosophy of the human race is based upon males and females coming together to have a child, and that for many people is a fundamental reason for leaving nature as it intended.
Okay, Thomas, thank you very much indeed for that. Let's get another view, another scientific view on all this with Dr. Alan Pacey, a sperm biologist at the University of Sheffield. He joined us live from Manchester. Very good to talk to you, Professor Pacey. What do you think about this? Is this a breakthrough? Are you convinced that these are viable sperm cells that are being created?
If it's true, and if they are sperm, then it is a breakthrough. There's a good logical and scientific reason to want to create sperm artificially, because it allows us to study how sperm are formed. It may help us to understand infertility. It may help us to develop new drugs that could overcome infertility. I think the prospect of using these sperm themselves in an infertility treatment is a very, very, very long way away, and I would very urge caution in our analysis of that. But I have to say, as a scientist who read the paper yesterday when I first saw it, I'm still not convinced that what we have here, the cells that have been produced, are bona fide, authentic, whatever you want to call it, sperm. I've not seen enough detail, I've not seen enough evidence yet.
Okay, Dr. Pacey, thank you very much for that. We must cut it short here because we're going to hear an important
And just on the, you know, the kind of headlines in the papers, there's a lot of suggestions around that this is the end of men. I mean...
No, I don't. You know, I mean, this is a treatment, this is a technique that could be used potentially for treatment, but I think to talk about having removed men from the human race is a bit premature. It would be, if we have an alternative which is intercourse and producing babies the old-fashioned way, then we should jolly well do it. This should be preserved just for those rare cases where we might have an infertility problem, if the sperm are genuinely sperm and if the safety data shows that we could ever use them in treatment.
Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you for all those ifs. Dr. Pacey.
Pleasure.
Context of white supremacy. Justice Gus T Renegade in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy, racism. Today's date would be Friday, December 16th, 2011. Thank you everybody for tuning in to the program. Before we get started, obvious Dr. Welsing moment to begin with. If anyone is interested in finding more information about that sound clip, you can find it on YouTube. It's actually a BBC News segment where they were talking about artificial sperm and no more need for man. I think if you Google that on YouTube, that's the title that the person who uploaded the video, that's the way you'll find it. Artificial sperm, no more need for men. In my opinion, obvious, as I said, Dr. Welsing moment. They don't have fertility clinics for black people, highly melanated folks. Again, white people's struggle to procreate. Yeah, we'll just leave it there. Dr. Welsing moment for sure. Today's broadcast, or this evening's broadcast, supposed to be focusing on talking to white people. Most constructive means of talking to racist man and racist woman for non-white people. Before we get to that, I did have a couple things I wanted to touch on. Listeners have been active doing their own investigations and reports and what have you. So before we get to that aspect, number one, a listener in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they first emailed me about this last week. Towards the end of last week, they emailed me about this. And they said that, if I'm getting the story correct, their partner, attempted wife, was driving and saw a deceased black male. The enforcement officers, paramedics, and what have you had been called in. The black male was on the ground, and she said that she saw a noose in a tree above where the black male was prone on the ground. And the listener who emailed me this said that they were going to be checking the newspaper in the Dallas-Fort Worth area to see if anything was reported on this, and they might have more information about what took place with this black male. And I said, hey, I'll look too. And I spent some time, I looked online, I didn't see anything reported. I checked, I Googled, I did a news search. I didn't see a word. The listener who submitted this material to me also spent some time looking, didn't find anything. And I'll just quote Pulp Fiction, nobody will be missed, right? Pulp Fiction standard, or in my opinion, standout line from the film, black male being murdered and tossed in a junkyard. Nobody will be missed. So the listener said, well, I'm going to follow up on this. This is absurd. 2011 for this sort of thing to happen, and not even a whisper about what happened to this black male. So he did some field reports and sent me his notes, and I told him I was going to share on the program. I know we have quite a few folks who listen down in the Texas area. If anybody else, if you want to follow up and do some asking questions, do some investigating, see if you can find some information about this case, Nobody who will be missed. The field notes. Nothing has surfaced in the news. This person's partner called the Associated Press in Dallas, and they had not heard of anything. What my wife explained to me that she saw, along with many passers, was an elderly black male who appeared to be homeless and dead on the ground under a tree, with what was clearly a noose in the tree, surrounded by the typical yellow tape with law enforcement and coroner vehicles. Her initial perspective was that the gentleman, black male, had committed suicide, until I painted a different perspective as to what the old black man, or why the old black man would hang himself in the middle of the night in such a busy area. His partner did not see the black male hanging, but his body was clearly under the noose, appearing to have been removed from it and placed on the ground. Next report. It is clear to me that this will probably not be reported at all. It will likely be viewed as a suicide and not given any media attention. Even if so, it still lends to the fact that finding a black male hanging from a tree is no big deal. Gives racist white supremacists an out every time. I wonder now how many times a day across the country does this happen and we never hear a word about it. Particularly in places that are seemingly, in quotes, not the norm of extreme racist practices. My heart is heavy because of this matter not being reported in the news. With the conditioning of the black mind, I'm sure that every person that passed the scene assumed, just as my partner did, that the black male committed suicide, and no one who was informed enough to take pictures and do some independent reporting. But it is reminiscent to me that this happened around the same time as last year's hanging in Greenwood, Mississippi. That was Frederick Jermaine Carter, for folks listening in. A crime that still has no culprit. When I return home, I'm going to find out as much as I possibly can about this incident. You're right, a homeless guy, no one who will be missed. A damn shame. The devil is always in the details. Next note. And this person went and took some photographs. The area where the black male's body was found and where the noose was hanging from the tree. He went and took some photographs. The tree in the photographs is where the black male was found hanging. The street, though very clear at this time, is typically very congested in the morning between 6:30 a.m. and 8:30 a.m. The picture of the gas station is just to show how close in proximity the gentleman would be to onlookers. This would have to happen in the very wee hours in the morning. Gus, no one cares. I'm amazed at even the lack of concern that is expressed amongst the people I've shared this with. Even the people I spoke with at the Exxon. It's like they have this look that says, maybe something foul happened. But hey, who knows? They claimed he killed himself, in quotes. And life goes on. We are indeed on life support. More and more, I understand Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. End of field note number 3. As I said, I just wanted to share that. I have not seen any additional information on this. I didn't even see, like with Frederick Jermaine Carter last year, they at least had a newspaper report, or a few of them, a handful, I'll say, like 5, to report, black male found, we think it was suicide, history of depression, oh well. And I mean, it wasn't a lot of those, but at least there were a handful of those with Frederick Jermaine Carter. I have not found anything on this particular black male, and as the victim wrote, I'm sure this sort of thing happens regularly. I will just quote Pulp Fiction one more time. No one will be missed. I'm going to take a quick commercial so I can get a sip of water. We'll be right back. Context of white supremacy, more to come.
RacismDaily.com, your number one source for global news reports on race, racism, and overt actions of white supremacy. From Asia to the Americas, to Europe, to Australia, to Africa, racism is not a thing of the past, it is our current reality. Be informed, be globally informed. You should be the first to know. RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com, RacismDaily.com.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open-source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Do you need a one-stop shop for all of your multimedia needs? Triumphant Multimedia is a skilled team of professionals with a passion for great marketing and chic design. Our specialties include consulting, brand development, copywriting, and creative graphic design that's second to none. We also offer photography, photo retouching, videography, and video editing. At Triumphant Multimedia, our goal is to provide highly effective creative solutions built to suit any individual need or budget. Give us a call at 678-732-8067 or check us out online at trimultimedia.com.
Hi everybody, welcome. This is Justice with the C.O.W.S radio program. If you want to learn about, understand, and counter racism, white supremacy, be sure not to miss a C.O.W.S episode. We keep them jammed packed with constructive information to sharpen your use of words to help eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy, ASAP. Also, for more information on racism, white supremacy, and to invest in my counter-racist efforts, please visit my blog, justdojustice.blogspot.com.
You're just saying just buckets and buckets of words.
Yo, this is Wade, one half of the Black Twins, and I want y'all to check something out. Our latest project, Double Consciousness, the Mixed Message. This will be dropping October 2nd, 2011, featuring various audio from Umar Abdullah Johnson and Dr. Kambom, just to name a few. You can download this at www.gagmusicroom.bandcamp.com and at stlouismixtapes.com. That's STLmixtapes.com. Replace white supremacy with justice now.
This mixtape is only for victims of racism and white supremacy.
All right, we're back. Again, anybody, if you are in the Texas area and Dallas-Fort Worth specifically, and you want to research, let me know if you're able to find more information about what happened to this male. If somebody knows specific information about him or the circumstances where the body was found, I would definitely like to know, and I know the victim who submitted the field notes, he would be interested as well. And again, I'm sure this sort of thing happens regularly under white supremacy. Black life is just not valued. Who cares? On niggers and squirrels. Pegasus Books. Again, anybody out there, if you are interested in writing, think you might at some point be interested in writing information, constructive information about racism, white supremacy, PegasusBooks.net, black publishers looking to get that information out to readers, PegasusBooks.net. All right. Next item we want to share before we get to the main topic, Mr. Nero, longtime listener and investor of the cows. He is listening in even when he is not able to call, and he wrote me and also had some field notes that he wanted to share. Mr. Nero wanted to comment specifically about racist woman. These are the notes from Mr. Nero. He said, I have still been listening to the archives and learning quite a bit. Thank you all for your time, energy, and patience. I'm sure it requires quite a bit of that. Amen. By now, we should have a firm understanding of racist woman's role in this lousy system known as racism, white supremacy. My statement regarding her role is as follows. The white woman gave birth to the system of racism, white supremacy. Our destruction, people classified as black, has come through her womb. The menace to society that she carries in her womb for 9 months is the greatest threat to justice in the known universe. That is my 2 cents. Have a thoughtful and productive day. He also says, please let Justice and the callers know that I said hello. Tell 404 she really knows how to shove it in and break it off. Questioning of guests. From Mr. Nero, longtime listener and investor. Always good to hear from him on the program. Moving forward. Next on the list. This was shared, listener shared this. I don't mind getting news reports in, so I feel like we've missed a couple here and there. Maybe we haven't, but I feel like we've missed a couple here and there. First news report, this is from Blacka, former guest on the program, investor, listener. He said he found this report today, and he just wanted additional feedback, so I thought I would toss it out, see if anyone has 2 cents about what's being reported here. I know this film is infamous. One of the racist females that I mentioned on the program when we talked about moments in white supremacy and some of Gus's history with white people, I knew a racist female who loved this film, Song of the South. Like, she was willing to spend mega bucks to get a copy back when you couldn't just go online and find everything. To find a copy, I think she had to send overseas for it and everything, all about Song of the South. This is the title of the report. Rutgers student proposes whites-only screening of racist movie. And this is on Jezebel.com. Recently, students in the Rutgers University English department received an exceedingly crap email inviting them to a screening of a racist Disney movie. Which Disney movie is not racist? Just throwing that in. Where darkyisms, in quote, and watermillium were on offer. Now, some students, understandably, would like an apology. According to an editorial by graduate student Elizabeth Braxton and her fellow students in a course titled Race, Ethnicity, and Inequality in Education, in the Daily Targum, a white PhD student sent the email to some of her classmates in a course titled Post-Bellum Pre-Harlem. Specifically, this email went only to the white students. She invited her fellow non-racist racists, dig that, in quotes, non-racist racists, to a screening of Song of the South, a 1946 movie that tells the stories of Brer Rabbit and the Tar Baby, and according to the NAACP, gives the impression of an idyllic master-slave relationship, in quotes. This film also has the infamous Uncle Remus. Anyone who is familiar with the Boondocks and Uncle Ruckus, his character is a spoof on Song of the South's character, Uncle Remus, who is an old black male slave, and he has fun passing down all these stories to the little white children on the plantation. Uncle Remus is the character. Anyway, The email added, "If you do come, hooch is most welcome, as are straw hats and other darkyisms." This is all in quotes. This is the email. "I might even buy a watermelon if I get enough interest." She also noted that guests should be careful whom they brought because, in quotes, "I might yell racist things at the TV." Unsurprisingly, when word got out about the email, many students were upset. What's even more disturbing, according to Braxton, is that the email's initial recipients didn't step up to take the sender to task, and the department never issued a formal response. She writes, "This racist email and the other students' reactions to it, including their silence, have now shaped the learning environment in their classroom in much the same way as the department's failure to act appropriately has shaped the environment beyond the classroom." A few professors scolded the writer. However, no one in the department publicly acknowledged the racist, discriminatory nature of the email. This was a moment when faculty could have made clear the seriousness with which they regard the critical topics they discuss in the courses they teach. A meaningful and important discussion could have taken place that may have changed or engaged people. Instead, an uncomfortable topic was largely avoided, and the feelings of the student who sent the email were prioritized above the pain of the students of color, non-white students, breeding resentment and misinformation about what was wrong with the email in the first place. This is all a direct quote in the response, the point of the people who had a problem with this and felt it was racist. The folks who wrote this report at Jezebel said that they reached out to the English department at Rutgers to see if they planned to respond. Hopefully, an official response is forthcoming. Students learning about the racial inequalities in education deserve to have racial inequalities in their education, under which a category of whites-only screening of a racist film, even if not an official class assignment, indisputably falls, addressed promptly and directly. It might be too late for the former, but the department still has the chance to do the latter. They also add that the Rutgers English department says that they actually did respond to the racist email and has now sent us a copy of their response. They also say that the offensive movie was never actually screened. Students from the class have yet to comment to us on the email or its aftermath. The title of this report, again, Rutgers student proposes whites-only screening of racist movie. My 2 cents on it would just be, tacky, trifling behavior. In fact, I would say that typically colleges and universities, when you have white students that are, 18, 20 years old, these tend to be really good environments to study and learn about racism, white supremacy. If you remember when we had Yalo Momodou on the program, black male in Sweden, and he talked about how the white students there had a slave party that was themed off of another Disney movie, The Lion King, I believe, was their movie of choice, where they dressed up in blackface and auctioned off people who were pretending to be black slaves. I remember that one. This is typical behavior where white people dressing up. I think there have been news reports at various colleges where they had some white students who, on Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, they had some sort of dress-up party where you could dress up as your favorite ethnic character. They had some people who dressed up as so-called Latinos, and they came with a lawnmower. Just trashy, trifling antics. This sort of thing is standard. You'll see a lot of this. Halloween is another time, I suspect, if you're on a college campus, go check out some of the white fraternities and sororities around Halloween. I'm pretty certain you will see some folks dressed up in something racist. If it's not a out-and-out Klan uniform, which I have seen, they'll dress up in blackface or some other foolishness. This is standard behavior. You just got white people, lots of alcohol, not very refined. They just get to have crude, trifling humor practicing white supremacy. That would be my 2 cents. And this film, as I said, white people love Disney. Which Disney film is not racist? Moving forward. Next on the list, This is with Jeffrey Dahmer, and I just want to reiterate, Robert Dvorak, anyone, if you missed the last program, white male, suspected white supremacist, he is currently writing on Jerry Sandusky and the pedophilia at Penn State. He said that book should be out in the spring of 2012, but he has already written a book, The Milwaukee Massacre, on Jeffrey Dahmer and his slaughtering of 17 people. Slaughtering, eating, necrophilia, cannibalism, the whole nine, white supremacy. At any rate, he was on the program Tuesday of this week. I did not suggest that date when I originally spoke with him. I had suggested some other dates. He picked Tuesday, which was kind of short notice, but I figured it was worth it to do the program and get the information out, and it seemed like a lot of people, they did find the information to be constructive. Had I had more time, I think it would have been even more constructive, because it would have given me an opportunity to plan things a little better, include other information. That said, a couple things that I did leave out in that program. We'll begin. There's so many documentaries. I was telling folks, if you want information on racism, white supremacy, study what happened with Jeffrey Dahmer. Man, it's a lot of documents. If you're not into reading, there are a lot of biographies, but if you're not into reading, there are a lot of documentaries. You can watch them online. They have quite a few of them on YouTube. When I was preparing for the broadcast this past Tuesday, one of the sound clips, I had it on Tuesday. I had in mind, I was going to play it on the broadcast, and I forgot. So I'm making sure I get it in. This is if you watch Larry King Live. They had Jeffrey Dahmer's father and stepmother on Larry King Live, well after Jeffrey Dahmer had been imprisoned. This is Larry King talking to Jeffrey Dahmer's father and stepmother. Pay close attention when he's talking about the racial classification of the victims. He says Asians, and he doesn't say African American. He doesn't say black. N-word. Pay close attention.
We're back with the Dahmers. There were accusations that there were racial things involved, right? Because many of the victims were Asian or black. Is that correct?
In all my conversation with Jeff, that was not a factor at all.
Were any of the killings Caucasian?
There was, yes.
At least 3 victims.
Yes.
Did you hear that? I hope everybody heard that clean, right? Almost said Negroes, and this is, I think this was 2000, if you go back. This is not from 1960, 1950, when that was what black people were called under white supremacy. This is real recent. I'll play it one more time in case you missed it. And if you want to see this whole interview, it is on YouTube in its entirety. It's about 45 minutes. Jeffrey Dahmer's father and his stepmother. One more time in case you missed it.
We're back with the Dahmers. There were accusations that there were racial things involved, right? Because many of the victims were Asian or black. Is that correct?
In all my conversation with Jeff, that was not a factor at all.
Were any of the killings Caucasian?
There was, yes.
At least 3 victims.
Yes.
Larry King would be a suspected racist anyway, but I just thought that was, and if you look at the comments, quite a few folks noted and said something about that. At any rate, moving forward, also Jeffrey Dahmer, like I said, lots of other things I could have added to this. I had Pam, co-author, Trojan Horse, Death of a Dark Nation, and the new book. I think she has hard copies in hand, should be available for sale within hours. It should be out. Just check the website, TrojanHorse1.com, TrojanHorse1.com. But Pam, she mailed this to me from a listener. I think he's someplace else on the planet, outside the States. I think someplace in the area of the world known as Europe. But he mailed this to me, or they mailed this to me, I want to say maybe 2 months ago. And then I had another person mail this to me earlier this week. And I could not believe that I didn't get it in on the Dahmer program. This is Black Man Cookies, right? Anybody, if you want to see this, this is posted on weeklyworldnews.com. Black Man Cookies. There's a new hot snack selling in Romania and Turkey. Black Man Cookies. Move over vanilla wafers, Oreos, Samoas. There's a new cookie in town. A super cookie, black man cookies. Romania and Turkey have a new top-selling cookie. Black Man is a chocolate-flavored cookie sold in stores all over Eastern Europe and the Mid-East. The cookie appears to have coarse hair, closed eyes, a wide nose, and big lips. It's sporting a Superman cape with a B inscribed on a plate in the front. They are flying off the shelves in Bucharest. And citizens in Istanbul are lining up for a tasty treat. It's the latest in a long line of European and Middle Eastern consumer products designed to profit from racial stereotypes. Let me codify. Designed to profit from white supremacy, anti-blackness. Eastern Europe, they don't say that these people are white, that's also key. So-called Eastern Europeans aren't known for their racial sensitivity, and the Turks, well, they feel they are just more quote-unquote open than people in the West. People in America are too sensitive, in quotes, said a black man cookie lover. It's just a cookie. A deli owner on 47th Street in Manhattan was asked if he sold black man cookies. What? Are you crazy? That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, in quotes. He went on to add, can't we all just get along? If anyone thinks Gus is making this up, you can Google this, black man cookies. I'm sure it will pop up all over the internet. And this is not even, I barely raised an eyelash when I got this. There's tons of this. There's a whole history of this. In fact, we have all become so desensitized, we don't even pay attention to this. I suspect many of us have grown up with Aunt Jemima syrup. Now just think about that. Anybody with Dr. Welsing understanding of white supremacy, pouring the sweetness from a black female to divide, you're watching it all the time. White people's necrophilia and white supremacy is constantly on display. If you want something older, they had back in the early 20th century, I believe it's Brazil nuts. I don't know how many folks we have who eat a lot of nuts, but they had Brazil nuts, and they used to call them nigger toes. Standard, lots of this. There's a black male, I spoke with him. He's in the Netherlands, group that's working against the Zwarte Piet, the Black Peter. And he said that they have some cookies. They are called, I do not speak Dutch, so I can't say it the way he did, but it was basically something called nigger cookies. And nigger was in the title of the cookies. This is in the Netherlands. And again, this is worldwide. This is not just relegated to being here. Worldwide. Uncle Ben's rice, you got it in front of you all the time. All the time. White people's necrophilia. Jeffrey Dahmer is just exemplifying white conduct worldwide. Next note, things I forgot related to Jeffrey Dahmer. I spoke with Dr. Welsing. I also forgot I wrote Robert Dvorak, the guest, and I know a lot of people, Miss Zanelli, she even called in from the UK. Always good to hear from her. Lots of people, they questioned because Mr. Dvorak suspected white supremacists. Towards the close of the program, he was saying that the inmate who killed Jeffrey Dahmer was white. And I had seen video footage where it was a black male that they were saying that killed Jeffrey Dahmer. I'd seen news reports that said that, and several of the folks listening to the program had said, hey, wait a minute, I think that's incorrect. It was a black person, and they raised the issue. I asked Mr. Dvorak about that after the program, and he said, this is in quotes, he said that his memory is a little fuzzy, and that he could have remembered that incorrectly, and to trust our research. That was his response, that he could have made an error, that it's been a while since he wrote the book, and quote-unquote, his memory was a little fuzzy. So I did ask him about that. As I said, there's video footage all over the internet that this was a black male who killed Jeffrey Dahmer. Just wanted to make sure that I did follow up on that. Also, I spoke with Dr. Welsing. I said on the broadcast Tuesday, Mr. Fuller said that Dr. Welsing had a field day with Jeffrey Dahmer and breaking that down. within the context of her theory of white genetic annihilation and what she's written in the ISIS papers. I called Dr. Welsing after that program just to kind of share some of the information with her. And she said that she would be more than willing to come on the program and give her 2 cents on Jeffrey Dahmer and what she saw. Some of the information I don't think she knew about the enforcement officers who returned one of the victims to Dahmer, that they were fired, and then you get to see the white army, the white gang go to work. White people organized, defended these white officers who were terminated, and fought for them for 5 years to have them reinstated. And she seemed to not know about that and some of the other details. But she said she would like to get a copy of Mr. Dvorak's book. She said that she went out to try to get it when I called her and left her the message. She said she'd like to get a copy of his book to see some of the additional information that he gathered and to talk about that. But yeah, looking forward to it. Hopefully we can make that happen as soon as possible. But she was breaking it down, and I think her words were, she said that she thinks that racist man and racist woman had Jeffrey Dahmer murdered not because he was embarrassing, but because he revealed too much about their system and the behavior, psychology of white people. He revealed too much. That was what Dr. Welsing said. But that will be an upcoming program. I hope, looking forward to it, and I'll just again encourage folks, research Jeffrey Dahmer. I think you will learn a lot about racism, white supremacy. And keep in mind, Jerry Sandusky, a lot of similarities there. I don't think you'll hear too many people in the media make a comparison between Dahmer and Jerry Sandusky, but it is for sure right there. That'll be coming up on a future program. On one more note before we get to the main topic of the program, when I spoke to Dr. Welsing, she shared that the thing that was her most immediate concern, her sister, she said, is currently in the hospital. She just had an operation, and her sister is in critical condition. And she said, once her sister has recuperated and is in good health, then she would be down to resume her schedule with doing a radio program and what have you. But right now, that's her primary concern. And I put it on my Facebook page. I put it on Twitter as well. If it's not too much bother, if anybody out there, if you could offer a prayer or any thoughts, if you don't pray, maybe have some time where you just think for a moment and wish Dr. Welsing well, her sister, her whole family. Hope that her sister recuperates quickly. Definitely want to see black people thriving and doing as well as possible under given conditions. If we are able to do a prayer to conclude the program today, it'd be great if we could add that in. A few thoughts for Dr. Welsing and her sister. Right on. With that said, we will get to the main topic. I think we have a sound clip to hopefully set the tone. I'll give out the number if you're interested in dialing in, if you have comments, questions that you'd like to add. The number to dial is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. I'll give it out one more time if you want to dial in, if you have questions or comments. The number to dial is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. We'll get our sound clip and be ready to roll.
I'm not going to do anything to your car, man.
I'm sorry?
You got some worried look like I'm about to do something to your car.
And I worry about this car everywhere, not just here, so don't take it personally, okay?
It's just a car, man.
No, it's not just a car. It's a BMW.
Oh.
Because anybody who knows anything about that company knows that it's more than just a car.
Oh, anybody who knows anything about that company, so I wouldn't know anything like that, right?
No, that's not what I meant.
Last thing I knew about BMW is they used to make these plane engines when they first started. A guy by the name of Franz Pop started it all. Franz Pop. I like that name. Made this one engine before 1920. Flew 6 miles up. But Pop and his boys, it was just getting started, man. Made this one engine, the 801, World War II. 14 cylinders, 2,300 horsepower, 7 miles up. Now, if they had more time, they would have been bombing the shit out of England and maybe even won the war. That's where this comes from. White propeller zipping around a blue sky. So after the war, we told them that they couldn't make plane engines anymore. And that's when BMW gave some serious thoughts to making cars. Kind of like this one. But you probably knew all that being as you leased one and all.
Thanks for the history lesson.
Nigga.
No problem, man.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. That is from Finding Forrester. Anybody out there, if you want to check out, you'll probably hear about that film down the road. That is a great film to pick out racism, white supremacy. I'll tip my hand a little bit. I am watching Finding Forrester. I had seen it before I was informed about white supremacy, so it's like seeing it for the first time, watching it right now. But I'm watching it because I strongly suspect that the relationship between Sean Connery and the main character, who's a black male in this film, is pedophilic. I'm quite certain it's there. I just need to watch it to pick it out. Anyone who hasn't seen the film, I'll give you the quick, synopsis. Young black male, urban setting, lots of black people playing basketball in a crappy high school. He is brilliant. Test scores are remarkable. They offer him a scholarship to go to a white private school and, of course, play basketball. He goes to the school, cowbell, and he meets this white guy, Sean Connery, who is a Pulitzer Prize-winning author. He's a recluse. He refuses to go outside, doesn't want to be around anybody. Total curmudgeon, if you will. And he takes this young black male under his wing and teaches him how to write. It's classic white supremacy. Classic white supremacy. That's the gist of the movie. If anyone out there, if you watch True Blood, the suspected racist female who plays Sookie, she is the love interest of the black male character, the main black male character in this film. Yeah, that's enough. Short synopsis. But that scene right there, right where I want to go with the main topic, talking to white people. The whole reason I wanted to have this program, it really is important anytime, but we had the broadcast just a few days back. We had the operator of the SaveWhitePeople.com, that website, when he was a guest on the program, and he was sharing his views here this past Sunday, and we had a lot of people called in. It was great. We had a lot of new callers, folks I hadn't heard before. Great to hear from everybody. I was a bit concerned because some people, they emailed me and they said that they were a little upset with the white man, the admitted racist white supremacist, that they were a little upset or a little emotional over some of the things that he was saying. They felt that he was just being blatantly racist and disrespectful towards black people, and that impacted the way that they questioned him or talked to him when they called in on that program. And I feel like that sound clip that you just heard, that's why it's important to be codified. It is important to have an understanding of what it means to be white under the current conditions of white supremacy. You can have all the information you want. That scene, he comes up, the black male comes up, and this white man has parked his shiny BMW, and the black male comes up. The white man is, of course, like, oh my God, gangster, hoodlum, thug, I'm going to die, and he locks his car. And the black male is, reciting every fact of BMW and their whole history and run it down, boom, 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 boom. This is where they started. This is what they were doing. These are the people that founded the company, and this is how many bolts they put in the car. He gives all that information, and the white man could care less. You are a nigger. Goodbye. And that's how the scene ends. Now, the only thing he doesn't call him a nigger in the film. I added that, but I mean that's really the gist of it. Without it being said. I could care less, nigger. So you are a nigger that knows the history of BMW. Whoop-de-doo. That's, I think, the best mindset to have, the best way to think. I'll say it that way. I think that is the best way to think about how you are going to function around white people. Have that in mind when you enter into dialogue with them. You should have that in mind constantly. White people do not care what you know, what your ancestors know, your brothers and sisters know. that makes no difference to them. They are about the maintenance of white terrorism forever. Forever. I think many times we get confused into thinking that, you know, if we can prove to white people that black people are worthy, that we've done something, we've accomplished something. Mr. Fuller even said that. I heard him say that, that back when he was more confused about white supremacy, he said that he used to think, man, if we could just show up on time and show white people, hey, we got our act together, man. We just needed a chance to get it together. That's not what this is about at all. And I just wanted to take some time. These are my views. I could be wrong, and I definitely want to make sure that I get out. I'm not an expert on talking to white people. I still am very confused. I'm still trying to figure it out myself. But I do make an effort. I do make an effort to talk to white people regularly about racism, white supremacy, and I'm trying to get better myself. So I'm certainly not an expert. Just pointing out, I'm sharing some of the things that I try to keep in mind when I talk to white people, some of the things that I've heard other victims say when they talk to white people that I think will yield better results. And the crux of all of this is that at the end of the day, you got to keep in mind we're still on the plantation. Unless this is the most remarkable conversation in the history of the universe, if you're talking to a white person, when you get to the end of that conversation, you're still going to be on the plantation, in the concentration camp, in the prison, whatever metaphor you need for racism, white supremacy, those conditions, unless something miraculous happens during the course of that dialogue, and I doubt that's going to be the case. So just keep that in mind. This conversation will begin and end, when you're talking to a white person, under conditions of white supremacy. Now, I will start with a quote. As I said, I want to share some of my views, some of the things I've heard other victims say that will help us have better dialogue, more constructive dialogue when we talk to white people, racist man, racist woman. Amilcar Cabral, hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, victim of white supremacy. He did a lot of work during the 1960s, 1970s against racist man and racist woman. He wrote a lot of books, very influential figure. He has a quote that I think is outstanding. It gets right to the core of the matter. His quote: "In revolutionary process, the desire for visibility is a teething disease, and that massive crowds gathered to make demonstrations of insurrectionary yearning before white people make no sense. Quiet, selective, effective, efficient initiatives will do." I will quote Mr. Cabral one more time, just because I think it is a beautiful quote. It really sets the way that I think is correct about the correct view you need to have about this, going about the business of putting the white army out of business. He says, "In revolutionary process, the desire for visibility is a teething disease, and that massive crowds gathered to make demonstrations of insurrectionary yearning before white people make no sense. Quiet, selective, effective, efficient initiatives will do." Amilcar Cabral, victim of white supremacy. I really make an effort to have in mind when I'm talking to white people, I'm really not trying to prove anything to them. I'm certainly not trying to educate them about racism, white supremacy. I do not get upset. I don't feel bad. It's not emotional at all. When I'm talking to a white person, I have specific objectives in mind, whether it's information or something that I want to see happen, specific things that I want to get done. And once I ascertain whether or not it's going to be possible for me to get that information that I want, or if it's something I'm trying to make happen, once I ascertain whether that is going to happen or not, bang, we can keep it pushing. You really want to be about not wasting time with white people. I was able to talk to several victims of white supremacy after the broadcast on Sunday. Non-Mighty Wick, 909, Miss Sinelle, I think somebody else. I'm forgetting one other person. My bad. If I think of the other person, I will get their name out. But I think all three of them in unison were kind of saying the same thing and had similar concerns, just voicing again. And I mean, it's a major problem. It's been a problem with us for as long as white supremacy has existed, and talking to white people and the tendency to either want to prove something to them or getting upset and angry when white people behave in a trifling and tacky way. And I mean, that is their MO. That is their method of operating worldwide. It has been for a long time. And I would hope that, we get to a point where it doesn't shock us. It doesn't bother us. We expect them to behave in a trifling manner, because that's what white people are. Trifling, racist terrorists. Expect nothing less. One lesson, I will give an anecdote and then kind of give out some things that I think are good, some strategies that you can kind of help to be codified when speaking to white people. Just with regards to time, I think white people, the white guy who was on the program this Sunday, SaveWhitePeople.com, I think for white people, and maybe this is something that we don't understand, maybe this is something that hasn't been emphasized enough on the program, I think for white people, it is an enjoyable form of racism for them to waste black people's time and to see black people get riled up and be jumping up and down and angry because white people have said, oh, you all are monkeys, you're baboons, and your children are little apes, and your grandparents are apes, and you all have never accomplished anything, and you ought to be happy that white people got your heathen selves out of Africa so that you could learn how to use a pencil and do something with your life as opposed to swinging from vines and eating bananas. White people have been saying that forever. It's just not something that should bother us. In fact, in my opinion, nothing makes white people happier than making those sorts of comments and seeing black people get all riled up and even going to the library to get books and get research to refute those claims. In my opinion, nothing makes white people happier. They get to crack up laughing. Those dumb niggas are a riot. Look at them scrambling in the library, trying to prove us wrong. And they just say anything. White people will say anything just to see how whatever response that they can get from black people. I think they call it pushing your buttons. White people love pushing the buttons of black and non-white people. Not only, as I said, does it waste our time, they enjoy driving our blood pressure up and seeing us sweating and jumping up and down. They love that. I've messed up that nigga's day. He'll be mad about that for probably several of that nigga's days. He'll be upset about that, complain. He'll go home and complain to his children and complain to his friends, or she'll go home and complain to everybody about what I said. Look at that. They so badly want us to think well of them. They want that white validation so bad. We can just say anything to them, and they'll get angry as long as they feel like that we think they're inferior. That will just ruin their day. I know, I know how white people feel about black people. They make it very clear. I know how they see me. That does not make me angry. It just lets me know I need to be dedicated and steadfast in putting them out of business, because these folks are dedicated to stomping on black people forever, period. It'll be Planet of the Apes 25 unless we put them out of business. Period. I don't need them to change how they feel about me. I don't need to invest 1 millisecond of my time trying to prove anything to white people. And I really want to emphasize the time aspect of it. Really guard your time. When I say on the program that I hope this is a constructive investment of your time and energy, I'm not just saying that. That's not just, something cute that I thought would sound nice to begin a program. I really mean that. If you are a non-white person, really value your time. I think that was something non-Mighty Wick, he emphasized a lot in terms of not really guard that. Don't let white people waste your time telling you foolishness or getting you into silly spats and arguments about what they think about black people or really anything else. And I can give you an anecdote. Eric Hamilton, he is an admitted white supremacist. Even Pam has mentioned him. This is a white guy met at the University of Washington. And there's video online, back of the bus, was able to record, and he got video up on his YouTube page where Eric Hamilton, you can see this white guy, and he's talking about the system. He's admitting to being a racist. We talked to this guy several times. We got great information from him. I think one of the first times that I spoke with him, we asked him about sex with between white people and non-white people. He admitted, yes, I've had sex with a non-white person, but more importantly, he said, I think that if a significant number of non-white people decided that they were not going to have sex with white people would respond with violence. First time I met him, that's what he said. And he gave the explanation to that. Another time I talked to him, he was explaining, yes, when you talk with a white person, you should expect them to sound convoluted and confusing and to use all sorts of contradictory statements. He said he was explaining that is a part of the defense system of white people, to confuse the victims, to not give you information about racism or anything else in a manner where you can easily understand it and use that information to improve your quality of life and solve whatever problems that you have. That's not how white people get down. That's not what they want to do. They want to make it as hard on you as possible. And this also works to reinforce your own inferiority complex. He was talking about us, black people, non-white people, and saying that when white people, when they give you information, when they're double talking, and I'm an anti-racist and I'm a racist, and all this sort of foolishness, they're doing it so that when you get confused, that self-doubt will creep in. That little white chip will say, oh man, maybe I'm ignorant. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's something wrong with my little feeble mind here where I can't understand what this white person is saying. When that's not it at all. You've got a racist practicing racism and not giving you clear information. All of this. Eric Hamilton, great information. I'd asked him repeatedly, come be a guest on the program. We would, this would really benefit non-white people to get this information, and you're telling the truth. I'm a racist. And I asked and asked. I think I asked him 2-3 times, and he finally, no, not going to do it. No, I don't want to do it. And I asked him why, and he said, well, I told you. I mean, I'm a racist. I got a business to protect here. And I said, I can respect that. I understand that. No problem. I bump into him later, and he's talking. He said, in fact, I can even date stamp this one. This is the second time the admitted racist Jessica Pettit was on the program. Eric Hamilton, I bump into him maybe 30 minutes after that program concludes with Jessica Pettit, admitted racist. I bump into him, and he says, hey man, I've been listening to your program, and I don't know, man, you get white people on there and you'll say that they're racist and just act like they're bad people and that nothing that they say should be believed. And I said, well, wait a minute now, when have I called anyone who's been on my program a bad person? And he said, well, okay, maybe you didn't say that, but I mean, it's implied, and the tone, and you're using that term non-white, and you shouldn't say that. It creates that. And I'm like, man, buckets and buckets of words. Where are we going? So he talks, and I think maybe about after 10, 15 minutes, and this was summer of 2009, August of 2009 specifically. And at this time, man, I was really gung-ho about talking to white people. I looked for opportunities to talk to white people, sharpen my words, my skills, think of new questions. And I just stopped about 10, 15 minutes into the discussion, and I said, man, I have got a lot of stuff to do. I think we did 10, 11 programs at the time. That was, more programs than we'd ever done in any month on the cows. I'm thinking, I got a lot of work to do. I don't really have time to be just sitting out here shooting the breeze with you because you don't like the term non-white. And I said, what is the point of this discussion? And he looked at me kind of surprised. And he said, well, we're talking here. And I said, okay, let's get to the bottom line. What's supposed to be the result of this discussion? And he says, well, we're having an exchange. It's a dialogue. And I said, well, you've already said that you're not coming on the program, right? Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I said, okay. You don't like my use of the term non-white. I'm not going to discontinue using it. And you don't like me referring to white people as racist on the program. I'm not going to stop that. So, what else is there to say? And he says, well, we're having, and I said, hey, man, you are white. You have a lot more resources than me. You're an admitted racist. You're a faculty member at a very big university. If you really know what should be done to solve this problem, the system of white supremacy, get to it. You really are not going to tell me that the most constructive investment of your time is to look over a nigger's shoulder and tell them what they're doing wrong in solving this problem. That cannot be. And he got a smirk on his face. And I said, yeah, exactly. You're not going to be wasting my time, and I'm leaving. And I'm trying to leave, and he says, well, this other victim that you know, he's the director for this victim. This victim is trying to get a minor in diversity studies. Anyone, if you're at the university level, you try to get a minor in a subject, you have to have an advisor, someone who helps you along. This admitted racist is the advisor for this non-white female who's trying to study racism. And he says, yeah, I think she's still a little confused. She was talking about Tim Wise, and she was so elated and happy about him. And he said, I'm looking at her like, I don't think you understand that Tim Wise is a racist. And I said, man, you could correct that. I mean, hey, you see that she's confused. Get on your job. Stop wasting my time poking at me. And he looked and he smirked again. And he said, oh, no, I don't want to do that. I have my own interests to protect. I'm not going to do that. And I walked off and I said, man, that is one of the most important lessons. Even though he didn't tell me anything that was of benefit, he didn't share any new information, just realizing the importance of guarding your time. Do not waste time talking to white people if it's just going to be a frivolous, little dialogue where they're trying to put you down and you don't know what you're talking about, you're stupid, and pseudo-scientific bullshit. You really do not want to waste a lot of time with that with white people under these conditions. We really just want to be about solving problems, getting constructive information, get to the bottom line. I saw B.H. Rasta and several other folks in the chat room when Joe Adams, SaveWhitePeople.com, when he was on the program, and he's talking all this craziness, black people, you haven't done this, and you don't have an alphabet, and you don't have any teeth, and blah, blah. Just get to the bottom line. What should be done with us? Period. That's all we want to hear. Not a whole lot of this other foolishness. It's not going to make me feel bad. No, I'm not going to the library to do research on the alphabet. I told 909, if we demonstrate that black people have or are capable of constructing an alphabet, are you going to desist with practicing white supremacy? I don't think so. We just move that off the table. White people love to do that, to get you on a lot of things that have no relevance at all to solving problems. I'm going to borrow a little bit of Mr. Josh Wickett, the code.net. You can see a lot of his reports, things that he's written on the system of white supremacy. This is just a snippet from a piece that he wrote on The Matrix, codified film review of The Matrix, the first one. You can read this on thecode.net. So this is midway down in the report. He writes, now what is the constructive value of refusing to lie to yourself? It is the key component to the revelation of truth. It's really the only weapon you have against the masters of deception. I no longer engage in those endless discussions regarding how great black people are. The white supremacists trick us into trying to prove to them that they are worthy of not being mistreated. I think I misread that. I'll say it again. The white supremacists trick us into trying to prove to them that we are worthy of not being mistreated. Shaking my head. I don't try to prove Jesus was black. I don't run and get my book, 100 Inventions by Blacks. I pull a pincer movement by using words to force the conversation to a point where suggestions must be made. I am a stupid nigger. My IQ is the same as my shoe size. I'm an alcoholic, unemployed, HIV positive. I stink, got no money, no job, and one tooth, and I look like a monkey. A monkey with one tooth. Got it? Now what do you suggest we do about me? I take it straight there and I don't stop for gas. I'm backburning, lay it all out, and then wait for their constructive suggestion. I often use this technique when a white person starts quoting guns, germs, and steel, or talking about what their ancestors did. I'm like, wake me up when you get to the part that justifies mistreating people. Don't be surprised if all you get is silence. You don't need anybody misleading you. You're already a victim of racism, white supremacy. You want to engineer a situation where white people are either going to make true statements or shut the expletive up. It's times like these that I realize that silence is truly golden and not just yellow. I will end there. Again, you can read this whole review, thecode.net, and that is from The Matrix Film Review. He has a lot of great film reviews, in my opinion, lots of different films. I think he did one on The Cube. He did one on Denzel Washington's film Training Day, lots of other films. Check it out. Great information. At any rate, I totally agree. I would not waste 5 seconds, not 1 second, trying to prove anything that black people have accomplished and what we did in Africa and this, that, and the fourth. I'm not doing any of it. And I'm not going the other way either. When white people, when they start saying that you all never accomplished anything. White people built the pyramids, and you all were living in mud huts and running around with grass skirts and cooking other people and whatever. White people, like I said, white people, they want to see. Thank you for the folks who are all the racists who put their trifling comments on the program page. Thank you for the reminder. They want to see us chimp out, to use their page and their website. That's what they want to see. They want to see blacks so they can say, man, we went by the zoo today and we rattled the cage. We got all those apes in there going crazy. We told them that black people are heathen savages and they're one step above monkeys. We got them again. We're going to do it next week. Same time, same channel. Next Thursday, we'll come back and we'll do the same thing. They have been doing this for years. For years. We should be... Codification is about getting to that point where I understand what's happening here and I know how I'm going to respond. And it's not going to be emotional. It's not going to be me crying. It's not going to be me getting angry. I'm not going to turn red. I'm going to go about the business of putting them out of business. I'm not going to prove a thing to them about what my ancestors did or how smart I am or what I got on my SAT scores or how many degrees I got. I understand. None of that makes any difference to them anyway. They're going to continue to practice racism regardless of what I prove to them that I have done, that I've accomplished, that black people have accomplished. That's not going to stop white people from practicing racism. Got it. That is codification. I think that's where we need to go to help put them out of business as soon as possible. Another thing, and this was something I heard on the program, the SaveWhitePeople.com broadcast with Joe Adams, where people were saying this is something that I hear regularly. It doesn't just pop up from that program, saying that the problem is that white people are ignorant. This white guy is ignorant. He doesn't know about Africa. He doesn't know what black people have accomplished. This old white guy's practicing race. Oh, he's just ignorant or she's just ignorant. White people are not ignorant about racism. I cannot say that enough times. If people who listen to the cows are still thinking that the problem is that white people are ignorant, we have failed. That is a monumental failure on the part of the cows, something that I will try to compensate for as we roll. White people are not ignorant about racism. When you experience a white person practicing white supremacy, the term ignorant should not pop in your mind at all. Ignorant and crazy, those are two things. It should not be, oh, Jeffrey Dahmer was just ignorant. He was just crazy. No, he's not ignorant. He's not crazy either. He's going about doing exactly what he wants to do. The terrorist in Norway, Anders Breivik, he is not crazy and he's not ignorant either. These people are methodical killers, rapists, terrorists. They are comprehensive about this and have been so for quite some time, strategically mapping out how can we kill the most people possible in the shortest amount of time. Let's have a think tank. We'll spend the next week and come together and think about how we can kill the most black people in the shortest amount of time in just this 20-mile radius. That is not crazy. That is not ignorant. That is a group of people who are scientific about terrorism. That is white people. It should never be. It is, I mean, it's pitiful. It's really all I can say to ever excuse or imply that a white person is ignorant, that that's the problem. That's why they castrated that black male. That's why they raped those black children. That's why they wouldn't let Rosa Parks on. No, it has nothing to do with ignorance. If anyone is ignorant, it's non-white people who do not understand white people. If anyone is ignorant, that's what it is. Am I saying that white people know everything about the universe? Absolutely not. But I am saying specifically with racism, white supremacy, the problem is not white people being ignorant about that at all. They don't care anything about what you accomplished and what you did unless they can take that information to help them further practice racism, white supremacy. The assumption on the part of non-white people should always be, if this person is white, they know a lot about racism, white supremacy. Just on the basis of that classification alone, the assumption should be, if that person says, I'm white, under these conditions, you should just take it for granted. They know a lot more about the system than you. They got they cousins, their moms, their grandmothers, their fathers, their in-laws, their brothers, their uncles, their grandparents, all to help them understand what's happening on a planet dominated by white terrorism. You don't have that. Never assume, ever assume that a white person, I don't care what they're saying, never assume that, oh, it's just that this white person is ignorant. You got to also keep in mind, we're talking about master deceivers. Master deceivers. If you need an example to have in mind, since we always say usual suspects, Kevin Spacey's character, master deceiver. I can make these folks think that I am impotent and ignorant and don't know anything. Matter of fact, I can make them think I'm the dumbest person here and I'm the one running the show. Isn't that what we say all the time? I think that's what Mr. Fuller at least says all the time, hiding in plain sight. The people that are causing these problems are right in front of you. And I'm saying strongly, one of the things that white people will try to do is make you think or plant that idea in your mind that the problem is that white people are just ignorant. Not at all. And I believe we recently had a guest, a white woman, Dr. Jane Hill. She was on the program, and I thought that was a huge point that she made. Educating white people about racism is not going to solve this problem. That entire line of logic, in my opinion, is flawed. White people do not need to be taught anything. Non-white people, we should not take that burden on of trying to educate them about anything and letting them know you need to go get this book and see what we've done or our ancestors. None of that. None of that. If anything, if the white person really doesn't know about it, he'll just take it like that grain of sand. What can I learn from this to help me keep my foot on these niggers' neck forever? Understand that. It is a tool. I think people, if you're accustomed to playing cards or if you're accustomed to playing any sort of sporting event or any sort of competition, I think a key aspect of competition is to keep your opposition ignorant about what it is that you know. You don't want to let them know everything that you have knowledge about. You want to keep them confused about that. White people are very good. That's another thing I try to monitor. If you're talking to white people and you want some codified things that you can think of to help you gauge whether or not what you're doing is constructive, I try to see how many questions I'm asking. It should never be the case. This is just for me. This is part of my code. You know, folks out there, do whatever you want. I have concluded if it's a white person and a non-white person in dialogue about racism, and that non-white person is just talking, and the white person is not saying anything, I've concluded that conversation is probably not going in the constructive manner. If you want some constructive things that you can think of, some actual mechanics, you should be asking questions. Non-white people, just asking questions. To that white person, specific questions, kind of all practicing. Mr. Fuller has some great questions that you can ask white people in the code book. Justice, I think she consistently has some pretty solid questions to ask white people. Some of the callers as well. Very refined questions, just sharpening what you want to know. And it shouldn't just be frivolous. It should be you really have questions that you would like answered, because white people often have information. That's the way it should be going. If you conclude that this white person, I thought that was one of the best comments, the female, non-white female, black female, who called in to the program with SaveWhitePeople.com. And she said, hey, how do you codify how you should function in a conversation when you have a racist that you've determined is dedicated to deception, that they're just going to lie every step of the way? Bang. Excellent, excellent. Some of the things that I do, you look for contradictions. Give me one moment. Sorry about that, folks. Forgive, thank you, all good. But yeah, that is one of the things that I try to do. If I'm talking to a white person, it should not be me just talking, and not asking questions, and deliberate questions, as I was saying, not just, frivolous questions about anything, things that you really want to know. White people tend to have information, and if you conclude, the black female who called in this past Sunday, you conclude, okay, this is a white person that's dedicated to deception. They're just going to be lying and not giving me truthful information. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with a white person? Because you will bump into such white people where they are just going to lie to you over and over again. Codifying that. What are some techniques that I can use to reveal when I'm speaking to someone who is not being truthful? How can I reveal contradictions, flaws in what they're saying to make it evident this person is lying? How can I reveal someone who is practicing falsehood? Outstanding. I think that is a much more disciplined way of thinking, engaging racist man and racist woman. It's not about feeling bad. It's not about being upset. It's not about trying to prove anything to them. It's just about, what am I doing that is helping to reveal truth, to expose racism, white supremacy? If they're practicing deception, how can I use my words to reveal that? That's all. Not trying to prove anything to white folks. One of the next things I want to bring, you see this demonstration. We non-white people have demonstrated this, just to hammer home about, because I heard some non-white people with the racist, admitted racist, Joe Adams from SaveWhitePeople.com, when he was on Sunday, saying, well, I'm gonna get this book and I'm gonna go study this about African history or African languages, and it's, in my opinion, it's not needed. I'm not saying that information is not important. If you want to research that to share with other non-white people, white people have done a lot to brain trash us into having a terrible perspective on Africa and black people on the whole. White people have done a fantastic job of that. Absolutely. They have done a tremendous job stealing information about things that we have done, our accomplishments. Absolutely. If you want to learn that for yourself and to share with other non-white people, that's great. But in terms of needing that information to deal with white people, I don't believe that's necessary at all. And if you want an example, Rosa Parks, she, I believe, known for fighting against racism, specifically the Montgomery bus boycott. When she got on that bus, she didn't get on the bus with a history. Excuse me, Mr. Bus Driver, this is the history of buses. I've collected an anthology, and this is how the first time that a bus was made. This is a photograph of what it looked like. This is the crew that put the bus together. This is the first time that they were mass produced. These are the changes and the evolution in the history of buses and when they became... She didn't get on with all of that. That's not relevant to you practicing racism right now. That's not relevant at all. And she didn't get on with an anthology of Negro history. That's not relevant either. You're practicing racism right now. What are we going to do to put that to an end? Period. That's all we need. We do not need to go and do an archaeological dig in Africa or India or any of the ancient civilizations of non-white people to prove anything to white people. And again, if you get that information, white people that I've seen, that is not going to stop them from practicing racism at all. They will snicker. We got them again. Ha ha ha. We'll come back next week. It'll be the bell curve. We'll just have them forever forever looking. And again, I think this is rooted in that white chip. Anytime that we are upset about a white person calling us names, practicing racism in a crude, trifling manner, I suspect it's linked to that white chip. DeactivateTheWhiteChip.com. I suspect it's linked to our desire to want white people to love us. That soothing lotion, wanting white people to like us, wanting that validation from white people. That's something we really got to get that out. I mean, that's just a part of discipline. It really should not be about, I don't care what white people think about us. In fact, it would make me happy. I think Ron Mightywick said that. It would make me happy if every white person began to sound like Joe. I wouldn't be angry. It would make my job 1,000 times easier. Like, see, I've been telling y'all, I've been saying this. This is how white people feel. It would make the job easier. I don't get angry at white people coming out and being truthful because I already know this is what's happening. We're in an environment that's saturated with white supremacy. In my opinion, the problem what makes it more difficult is that most of the time white people are not out in front like that. I would prefer if white people just go around and start calling us apes and niggers all day long. Beautiful. In an overt manner, beautiful. Beautiful. You hopefully will have a lot more non-white people who will be focused on white supremacy as a major problem, will be less confused, and will have a drastic change in the way that they view white people. Period. And just my opinion, I assert if you really understand white people, white means racist white supremacists, there should be no confusion, there should be no surprise, anything that they do with regards to black people. Never. Especially if it's just something that they say. White people making trifling commentary. I mean, that's, again, the sunrise, the chipmunks, you see and hear that every day. That really shouldn't surprise us, and we really should be beyond a point of responding with a lot of emotion around that. And I think some of that also might be rooted in us feeling like, and I think I've been guilty of this too, feeling like if a white person is talking crazy and saying these racist things about black people, if I put them in their place and show them where they're wrong, that is working against racism, white supremacy. And I've just concluded, again, going back, any metaphor you want to use, prison cell, concentration camp, plantation, if the guard comes by, concentration camp or the prison, slave master comes by, and he says something about black people, you all are dumb, ignorant savages. Look at the whole bunch of you. Now, I could, hey, we were kings and we did this and blah, 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 and you go into all of that. At the end of the day, if I'm still in the cotton field at the end of this conversation, in my opinion, not much has changed. Just a different way of looking at this. I think we've been doing the same thing for quite some time. I think we should be looking at different ways of handling white people, and especially when, white people are just being truthful about how they feel, letting their racism hang in all its trifling and tackiness. Hey, no problem. I appreciate you being open and honest. I'm not angry. This is what I understand to be the truth about white people anyway. This is why we have Jerry Sandusky. This is why we have Jeffrey Dahmer. This is why he was able to mutilate and butcher and rape so many black children or young males. This is why that was able to happen, because we don't care about black people anyway. We think about you all as apes and monkeys anyway. So who cares if a dozen of you all turn up missing and in some white man's refrigerator? Who cares? I understand that. It's not some, the offense has already been created. I mean, we're in an environment where we are worshiping racist man and racist woman every day. You got the Rhodes Scholarship. It's all around you. Monuments to Thomas Jefferson, rapist, racist, rapist. This is the world in which we live. If you're going to be offended at every time a white person says something about black people or non-white people, you are going to be worn out before the end of the day. It reminds me of when Troy Davis, black male, was murdered back in September of 2011. I believe September 21st, 2011. And I remember a lot of black people feeling bad and, hey, we are on the battlefield. You got to understand that. We got to be honest with ourselves about that. This is the world in which we live. We cannot be surprised and we cannot be emotionally torn up. If it's a white person practicing racism, meaning they go out and kill 1,000 black people or one black person, or they're just making racist comments. That's the world in which we live. And it's not going to be to our interest to respond in an emotional way every time this happens. This is the sort of thing we should expect. And again, I assert, if it's just the comments, we should be glad, because that's revealing truth about the character of white people. It goes a long way to explain why things are the way they are. See, next thing I wanted to make sure that I get in. Just on the emotions, and really, trying to emphasize that and not getting angry. Like I said, I had people who emailed me and said that they were angry listening to that white guy and other white people who've been on the program. I had some people said they were angry as soon as they heard he was going to promo on the program. They were angry. They didn't want to hear him talking crazy, racist about black people. Excuse me. I'm saying it's critical. It's critical to really have your poker face on. For people out there, if you play cards, you understand you're in a competition. You don't want to show your opponent how you're feeling about everything. You want to kind of keep that guarded. You don't want to let all the information out about your hand, how good it is or how bad it is. Same thing with racist man and racist woman. The reason I say this is really important is because I've seen this work out to the advantage of racists. Not only when black people get angry and chimp out so that white people get to enjoy a show, I really bothered those niggas, I made them angry and ruined their day. I've seen skilled racists go the other way, where they will say, oh, black people are kings and queens and you beautiful melanated folks, oh, we've done you so wrong, and white people, we're going to get our comeuppance, and oh, you beautiful queen. And I've seen that too, where they will push it the other way and against all that white validation, our white shit. That's exactly what so many of us have been conditioned to want. Oh, this is a white people who thinks that black people are great. Oh, this is a white person who loves me or likes me, respects me. Oh, this is my lucky day. This is the best feeling I've had in the last 20 years. We want nothing more than to get that from a white person. And that doesn't have any impact on me either. White people coming, in fact, I'm more suspicious of that because I feel like these people are trying to get me to drop my guard. No emotion at all. It really is not about the feelings. White people are masters at manipulating people's emotions because they know I can make you illogical. I can make you put using logic to the side. If I can play on your emotions and get you angry. Muhammad Ali, I said this to somebody, Muhammad Ali used to do this masterfully, and I'm saying white people do it all the time. Just call them a few names, oh, you're a sucker, oh, you're a chump, and then you totally thrown your game plan out the window. You had a whole strategy about what you wanted to do in the ring. Muhammad Ali said a couple words to you, that's out the window. Now you're swinging a while, next thing you know, you've been knocked out. White people do this to us all the time and KO us. How many times have you seen the news reports? White person called this black person a nigger. They got angry, fought the white person, ended up in jail, ended up fired from a job, ended up suspended from school. How many times a day does this happen? That's what I mean about just there needs to be a fundamental change in the way we view white people, the way we understand white people, and just understanding this is how they behave. We should be on the lookout for this, and we should already have in mind that if a white person calls me a nigger, I'm going to do this, this, and this. You can even have a diversified code. If it happens on the job, this is what I'm going to do. If it happens when I'm out in public and I'm not on the job, this is what I'm going to do. If it happens in school, if I have offspring or if I'm in school myself, this is what I'm going to do. Already have that in mind. It can't be a shock. A white person saying something trifling and racist cannot be a shock to us in 2011. It can be. And white people being nice, because like I said, I've seen that. I don't know how many people, I don't know, how many folks out there who actually talk to white people seriously about racism, but I've seen them go the other way too, where it's both ways. It's just using your emotions to come at you and get you to not think. Well, they'll be really polite and they'll compliment you. And, oh, I think you're the smartest Negro to ever walk the face of the earth. You know more about racism than anyone in the universe. They'll go the other way and really try to praise and worship you. Don't go for that either. I'm still talking to that's what I'm telling you, what I have in mind. This is a racist that is talking to me, and if they're saying all this nice stuff, I suspect they're trying to get me to lower my guard so that I am not suspicious of them so that they can drop the double whammy on me. Can't be tied to emotion, folks. I hope that is clear, and especially the ignorant part, all of that in together. White people are not ignorant, and we cannot be emotional. White people know what they're doing. They are some of the most tactical, methodical, strategic terrorists in the universe. In fact, I would say the most strategic terrorists in the known universe. Do not underestimate, and certainly it is, I won't say it's disrespectful, but in my opinion, it highly underestimates what white people have been so successful at doing, which is stomping on black people, to use Dr. Cambon's term, waxing us for the last 500 years or more. It really underestimates what they have and continue to do to us. They're not ignorant, and we can't be emotional in responding to that. Almost done here, and I'll double check. Oh, in fact, I will let Mr. Fuller cap all of this because he actually summed all of this up beautifully, I think. I'll make sure I don't have anything else I want to make sure that I get on. Again, I can't overemphasize enough. You're not trying to prove anything to white people. That really should not be in our mind, our way of thinking about dealing with this problem. When I have white people on the program, I'm not trying to prove anything to them, and I'm not trying to educate them. I think some people have said that before, that I'm trying to teach them. I'm not teaching white people at all. Frequently, if you listen on the program, I will tell white people, I'm not even really talking to you right now. If I feel I have to make some statements, I will make it clear I'm talking to non-white people listening to the program. I have concluded, as I said, white people are experts. The typical white person, by the time that they are 18, 20, they got a PhD in white supremacy. I'm playing catch up, Gus. I'm trying to catch up in my understanding. White people typically would get all this information implicitly. They won't maybe use the same terms that I'm using, but they will have an overall understanding of what's happening and how they should be functioning as a white person. They got that on lock. By 18, probably sooner than that. They got that. I'm not trying to teach white people anything. I'm not trying to prove anything to them. Even if they don't agree with what I have to say, that's fine too. I don't need their agreement. We don't need them to validate how we view racism, white supremacy, really, or anything else. We don't need their validation. If white people don't agree with us, if they don't, a lot of sporting events, I think a lot of us, if you've seen football or you've seen basketball or whatever sporting event you watch, I'm sure you've seen, if you have a team that you cheer for, I'm sure you've seen when your team goes on the road. You expect a hostile environment. You expect everyone to be cheering against them and calling them names. Sometimes they'll have signs up with bad things said about them. You expect them to boo every time your player comes up. If it's basketball, you expect them to boo and make noise and call them names if he goes to the free throw line or she goes to the free throw line. If it's football, you expect them to boo the whole time your team has the ball. That is racism, white supremacy, and we are dominated by that. When white people make those sort of comments, it's like, hey, white people got home field advantage. That's what white supremacy means. It's going to be their decorations everywhere you go. The earth is the stadium, and they got the whole thing decked out in white supremacy paraphernalia. The stands are going to be rooting for white people. Even if it's black people around, they're going to be white identified, their white chip will be working, and they will be rooting for white people. Oh my God, I can't believe you said that about that white man, that nice white man. You're some kind of black racist, aren't you? You're a segregationist in return. You should expect all of that and have codes in place for how you're going to deal with that. Shouldn't be a surprise. 2011, it shouldn't be a surprise. Make sure anything else I want to get in, and then I will get Mr. Fuller's clip. Once we're done with that, I'll check the phone lines and see if folks have anything that they want to share. I can't emphasize ignorant because I heard that at least 3 or 4 times this week from people who listen to the cows. It was like a knife jabbing me every time I heard someone, when a white person practicing racism and a non-white person saying, oh, that white person is just ignorant. It was, failure of the cows. White people are not ignorant. I cannot stress that enough. White people are not ignorant. That is not the problem at all. They're not ignorant about racism, white supremacy. I'll say again, I'm not saying that white people know everything in the universe. I'm not saying that. I will definitely agree with Mr. Fuller. White people have demonstrated that they are for sure smarter than non-white people. If that wasn't the case, we would not be having this program right now. However, The problem is not that white people are ignorant or that white people are missing information about racism. That's not why white supremacy exists. I cannot emphasize that enough. If I need to say it every program, I'll make a recording of this and that'll be a new sound clip, but that is not the problem, that white people are ignorant about racism or they are missing some vital piece of information which would keep them from practicing white supremacy. That's not it at all. And I would assert anyone who's saying that the problem is that white people are ignorant, you really don't understand white people. If you at any time find yourself saying, explaining a white person practicing racism, white supremacy was doing so because they are ignorant, I strongly assert, if it's a non-white person making that statement, they do not understand racism, white supremacy. They do not understand white people. Joe Adams is not ignorant. He is not ignorant at all. I would say he is a less powerful racist, in my opinion. I think his method is a bit crude. I suspect a lot of white people, I think they would say about him what they said about David Duke, that I am in total support of white supremacy, but I don't like his method of practicing white supremacy. That's what I would say about him. I would not say, not today, not tomorrow, no time on the plantation, would I say that Joe Adams or any other white person is ignorant about racism, white supremacy. And I'll be saying that a bunch. If it's anybody, on the line, if you're listening out there and you don't agree, you can share your view, but I would need a lot of logic on that to explain how it is that white people have come to dominate all the non-white people in the universe while being ignorant. Just doesn't add up to me. This is Neely Fuller Jr. Talking about this topic. I think he makes it crystal clear in terms of not getting angry, trifling antics of white people. What you want to do if you're talking to a white person, get to the bottom line. Why am I talking to this white person? What do I need to know? What do I want to happen? And how can this white person assist me in getting that done? Get things to the bottom line as quick as possible and do not have your feelings hurt. Put your poker face on. Don't respond. That'll be the last thing I say. They train people. If you're going to be an interrogator, if you're going to be an investigator, they train you to not respond. You can watch white people's crazy films. Kinsey, about the pedophile racist who was molesting young children and doing his studies at Indiana University, predecessor to Jerry Sandusky at Penn State. He was training people to go out and ask questionnaires about sex, and he said, "Hey, man, I don't care what that person says to you. I don't care what they share. If they say, I've been raping donkeys since I was 6, very interesting. You write that down and keep rolling. You take the same approach if you're talking to a white person, and you should think of it as an interrogation or an investigation. This is a serious line of question, and I am going to conduct myself as such. I'm not going to be jumping up and down. I'm not going to be gripping my seat if we're sitting down talking. I'm not going to be gripping the side of my chair with my knuckles stretched out and I'm all No. Whatever they have to say. Poker face. So Joe tells me, hey, we go out every summer and we kill 20 black people. And we cut the penises off. We cut the breasts off. We cut the toes off. And we put some of them in mason jars. And then we take the body and we drizzle coconut over it and caramel sauce. And we serve it for dessert. And we save a part of it for Christmas and have that as a celebration. And we do this every year. We've been doing it every year my whole life. That is interesting. Nothing I haven't heard before on the part of white people. Very interesting. And you can make a note of that so you can turn that in or whatever you think should be done as a result of that. But I'm not wigging out. Train yourself on that. If we need to do exercises on that, we can do that. Train yourself to not respond to things. And I'll tell you, Mr. Edward Williams has talked about this. White people would do this on the job a lot. They will try to say things to throw you off. If you're having a discussion trying to get something constructive done, they will do things to try to push your buttons to get you to respond So that once you dropped your logic and you're not thinking, bam, now we can go the double whammy on you. They are worse than Muhammad Ali with that, and getting people to drop their strategy, their logic, and just fly off the handle and try to deal with them when they got a plan. They are waiting for you to do that. I will rest there. If you want to dial in and share your thoughts, the number is 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943 pound. I will hit the phone lines once Mr. Fuller has concluded. The number one more time, 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943 pound. This would be Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. giving his thoughts. I hope it is clear. Codify how we deal with white people. Never be surprised at white people being trifling, tacky, terroristic. Neely Fuller Jr.
Yeah, I've noticed a lot of these white people that make these books talking about how stupid black people are. Like, he talks a lot about the bell curve in his book and some of the other ones. They don't really get to, what should be done. Like, should we make, little towns to put all the dumb black people in? Should we kill them all? Like, they don't really...
They make good money off of this, and they go all over the world talking about it, and they do it as long as they don't ever get around to the doing part. Now, Dr. William Shockley, years ago, I told Dr. Wilson, I said, when you go on Donahue and talk to him, at some point you ask him, what is his solution? Now, on account of the commercials and all like that, on a couple of programs, she just never got around to it, or maybe she forgot to ask. But anyhow, Shockley just kept on rolling. And I said, all somebody got to do is just ask him, what is he going to do? Or what does he recommend be done? That's all somebody got to do, any of them. Just ask them that. Just one question. Not a whole lot of questions, a whole lot of shouting match, trying to prove about black people's scores and black people built the pyramids. I wouldn't spend 10 seconds doing none of that. Ever. Not ever. Under no circumstance would I spend 10 seconds trying to prove that black people are intelligent. To anybody. That's not the counter-racist scientific way. Counter-racist scientific way is to ask a person, okay, you made your assessment, what are you going to do? Or what do you recommend that everybody does? Or somebody does? What's your recommendation? The doing part. Not the assessment part, the doing part. So Shockley, finally, in a Playboy magazine article, William Shockley was finally asked by somebody, after a whole lot of traveling around and people getting upset and demonstrating and whatnot and talking about run Shockley out of town and all that kind of stuff, finally somebody did what I consider to be the most intelligent thing. One question. Dr. Shockley, what do you recommend men be done? Somebody in a Playboy magazine asked William Shockley that, because he was talking about how inferior black people were and had been doing it and doing it and doing it and going from campus to campus and crowds coming from everywhere, to listen to it and, and try to rebuttal it, and professors going up sweating and whatnot and getting hot under the collar, and on and on and on. Finally, in an obscure Playboy magazine interview, somebody asked him the question that could have been asked the first 5 minutes he walked out on the first stage. The most logical question after he makes his presentation. And he said, well, Dr. Shockley, what do you recommend be done? He said, bring in, have all the black women be told that they'll be given $100 to be sterilized. And they won't have any more of these dumb black babies. And when Shockley said that, all of his support everywhere abandoned him. Because you're never supposed to say what you're going to do. He broke the white code. what you're supposed to do is go around and get all black people upset about whether or not they're inferior, and have them just blowing off steam on every radio program. I mean, and going on campuses and whatnot, and all the students on the campus, I mean, get some signs and say, you know, oh, Dr. Shockley say we ain't nothing. Enough already. It's a simple formula. And people come down the pike and run that over and over again on black people, and black people react to it the same old non-codified way.
You think that's the intent when white people go and print out these sorts of
Oh, he's practically winking and laughing. They go behind the curtain and say, I mean, they turned out today. I had one of the biggest crowds ever. They all paid $40 to come and see me tell them that they ain't nothing. I mean, you know, I mean, I love it. I mean, get me on the plane. I got 15 other engagements all over the world. You know, all I got to do is just ask him, okay, you know, that's what you say. All right, you know, given that might be true, you know, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it, William? You know, end of story. Now, the last time person I might have asked the guy at the bell curve about it, like Dr. Wilson, when she finally got around to debating him, she did ask him, and he said, well, I didn't come here to debate now, you know, what to be done about it. See, he had learned. And so he's still kind of hanging on, because that's the cue. That's all you got to do. Is just, you know, ask them what do they intend to do about it. Well, what they really intend to do about it is to keep it going by this, go to the next campus and get everybody upset, and then take off running to the next campus. It's an old trick. See, the white people turned against Shockley. They sank his boat. The black people didn't have to, because what he did, say, you're not supposed to tell these Negroes what you're going to do. You're supposed to tell them what they are, and how far out, you know, and what they, how they ain't this and they ain't that, and they don't amount to nothing. You can do that, you know. That keeps them upset, you know. They run from that. I mean, you know, and run to it and then run from it and then run back to it again. They don't know what to do when you tell them that. They don't stop to think. You know, say, you're right about that. That's one thing they won't do. They won't stop to think. Wait a minute. Before I go over there on that campus again and get jerked around for the 50th time about what Dr. Shockley thinks or what all these other guys who do this and thing, I'll just ask them, hey, I'm tired of going to bed feeling bad about how you feel about me. I just want to know what you're going to do about it. End of story. Well, we'll get to that next time. I mean, but I got to catch a plane. I listened to that about twice when Shockley was around. He was very noted for that. And I came to the conclusion immediately. Ain't nobody asking him what he's going to do. They don't ask him nothing about the recommendation of how you solve the problem. Once you recommend how to solve the problem, then you got something to work with. But just somebody passing through town saying, you know what? All the black people in this town are stupid and ignorant and ain't never done nothing and never will do nothing, and, you know, and their mamas ain't nothing, their papas ain't nothing, and they ain't nothing. Now, pay me. I'm going to the next town and do the same thing. I mean, it's a simple formula. Hello? Hello?
I'm sorry, I was talking away. I said, have you heard any of these people get challenged on the concept?
Sure. No, I've heard people. I mean, you know, they've had 4 or 5 black people come up and, you know, and challenge them, and students in colleges and whatnot who always feel bad about stuff like that. They always turn out.
But do they challenge?
It's an excellent way. Yeah, they turn out and challenge him. I mean, on the points and whatnot, start talking about the pyramids, you know. And then, I mean, you know, then they jump up and say, oh, no, black people never came nowhere close to a pyramid until they went on a tour. You know, it's all built by Alexander the Great or whatnot, you know. And say anything. And then they get all upset about that. Well, I got a book here that says we did, you know.
Do you hear?
That's just nothing but the okie doke. We fall for it. We keep falling for it.
Do you hear anyone?
We're approving what he says, really. Mm-hmm. When we sit there and get all excited about him taking that assessment, the codified position is, okay, hey, suppose we are inferior, always have been, always will be. Let's suppose that's the truth. Because I'll say it in a minute. I say, now what's your next move? I made my move. You have concluded that I'm inferior, and I'm saying, yeah, I might be. Now what? What are we going to do now? Dance or what? What are we going to do now? What are you going to do now? Because you would be doing me a favor if you just tell me what you're going to do. And I don't care what it is you're going to do. You'd be doing me a favor. Whatever you tell me that you're going to do. But I'm not going to get excited about your assessment. And I'm not going to get excited about what you are going to do. I'm just going to prepare for it. Now, you know, so call it. See, now most black people at a subliminal level, I think a lot of black people, I won't say most, I don't know the percentage, that's the one thing they don't want to hear from him, what he's going to do. Because then that might tell them, hey, I'm now going to have to go into a fear mode. But see, I'm saying you shouldn't fear that. Not just from one white person, if all of them in one voice say it. Whatever it is. On the day today, we are going to tell all you black people on this planet what we are going to do. We're going to stop telling you all about yourself and what you need to be doing and all like that. We're going to stop telling you that. We're going to tell you what we are going to do with you. Now, I would not lose one moment's sleep at night on the day before the night of the day, that next day, when they will announce that they're going to come on and speak for the whole white world about what they're going to do with the black people on the planet. I would not lose not 1 hour's sleep about that. We're breaking out in a sweat, wondering whether there's going to be something bad. I just wake up and say, okay, what time y'all going to announce what you're going to do? They say 9 o'clock. I'd have my TV on at 9. And whatever they say, it's okay with me. And they might come out and say, well, we unanimously agreed at 1:30 this morning, a.m., that at 9 o'clock this morning we were going to announce it, that we're going to exterminate every black person on the planet. And I'd say, okay, that's their answer. And what that would mean to me, I got to prepare for the extermination and how I'm going to go down with it. Period. According to the code, I'd go down fighting. Running and fighting. Which is what any animal would do that's got good sense. But as far as worrying about that decision, no. Or getting all emotional about it, absolutely not. And that's not because of my age. I took that position when I first started writing the code. Because I told people it might come to that. So what? First talk that I made, 1969, I said that to the audience. I said, if you people here at the University of Maryland, you white people decide that the best thing for the entire planet would be to exterminate all the black people, then say that. And stop playing with it. And then go ahead and do it. Stop arguing about it. Stop trying to prove points. We don't need points. That was as far back as 1969. I said, everybody's just, waving their hand and all like that, trying to prove points. I said, get something done, one way or another. Either do justice or let's get it on for the last time and for the final time.
Context of white supremacy, back live. Neely Fuller Jr. You need a code book, word guide. You can put it in the address tiny.cc/Fuller in all caps. Tiny.cc/Fuller in all caps. You can get a word guide, code book, both. Neely Fuller Jr. Before I check folks on the phone line, I will just reiterate, white people are not ignorant. I'm going to try to say that as often as I can now. Hopefully we will never have another person who listens to the cows assert that the problem is that white people are ignorant about racism, white supremacy. White people are not ignorant. Non-white people remain calm and codified. I believe Justice got that in this past Sunday. Remain calm when speaking with white people and courteous. That's something that I do too, just as a part of codification. And it's not even anything out of respect for white people. It's really just about me and how I think I should be functioning and trying to be courteous in dialogue and not name calling. For me, that helps kind of keep things business where I'm not getting too relaxed and just, good cracker and this, that, and the other. I think it just, for me, it helps to remain calm, logical, focused on what I'm trying to do. Just Mr., ma'am, sir, that sort of thing, regardless if I'm talking to a white person or a non-white person. Just part of my code to help me remain focused on what I'm supposed to be doing. Calm and courteous. Calm and courteous. Even when they're doing their antics, because their antics works for me. When white people are doing their, you all are apes and monkeys and all that, that works for me, proving exactly what I said. I should never, ever be surprised about a white person practicing white supremacy. If you want to dial in to share your views, the number to dial, 760-569-7676, and the code is 564943. If you're on the TalkShoe line and you have questions, comments, it's *8. If you are on the 760 line, it's *6. If you have a question, good to see Mr. Scotty Reed out there listening in, founder of Black Talk Radio Network. I will get Justice first because she said she had some racist jokes actually to share with us, and I always love racist jokes. Justice, if you have some racist jokes or anything else you want to share, your line is open, and then I'll get the other folks as soon as she's done.
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I closed out of it, but I will pull it back up. If you want to do whatever until I pull that up, then that'll be great.
Okie dokie. Groovy. I can't think of any racist jokes off top, but hopefully this is a good part of the training as well. Any of these sort of trifling jokes that you hear on the cows, this is what white people talk about all the time. I'm quite certain if anybody out there, if you hang out with white people or you know white people, God forbid, if you have white friends, ask them to share some of the racist jokes, and you'll get to hear, this is what white people think about black people. Their jokes, crystal clear. You get a very, very neat illustration of exactly what white people think about us, whether they're smiling and being refined or whether they're doing the chimp out and being overt about it. Those racist jokes, I'm quite certain any white person you talk to will say, yes, I've heard them. My dad, my uncles, my cousins, my friends, my wife even. I've heard them. This is what we're swapping regularly about you all. You can chime in, let us know when you found it. Again, we'll be back Sunday. I forgot to tell folks. Dr. Nyana Rasayon, he'll be on the program this Sunday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. I think this is his third visit. He's always had a lot of constructive information. He actually wanted to talk about, they did a piece on MSNBC a couple weeks back. White people, they got to do their yay we're God. They went to Africa. I think they were in Mali, and they were doing this special on young black children in Africa who were forced to work in these mines, and it's all dangerous, and they didn't really get much money, and oh, it's so terrible, the heathen black people, oh, isn't this sad, oh, this is the worst thing ever, like they really care. They did this whole, it was like 20 minutes too, very long piece. He wanted to break down some of what was going on in this segment on MSNBC, but Dr. Rasayon, he'll be back with us Sunday. That would be December 18th, this Sunday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Pacific, context of white supremacy. Oh, and Jane Elliott will be making her third visit next week on Wednesday. Admitted racist. She did the blue eyes, brown eyes exercise. Anybody familiar with that? You can go back in the archives. She's been on twice. That would be another example, Jane Elliott. It's not personal at all. When she was here the first time and she got mad because I was using the term non-white, and she even got to a point where she wasn't going to answer questions if I use the term non-white, I don't get angry about that. I don't get upset about that. I don't take it personal. It's just business. And she did have constructive information in addition to practicing white supremacy. Looking forward to having her back. Visit number 3 next Wednesday, December 21st. Let's see. Okie dokie. Did you, have you found it yet, or you need a few more minutes?
I found it. I found these racist jokes on, just go to the website, 1000funnydokes.com. There's 51 racist jokes, and there's, yeah. Let me see, I can probably pick a good one. Let's start with, okay, it says, starts with N and ends with R. Question. What word starts with N and ends with R that you never want to call a black person? A neighbor. Another one. Okay, the second one is parade in Mexico. How do you start a parade in Mexico? Through a quarter down the street. The third one is black has been on your computer. How can you tell when a black has been on your computer? It is not there. Hang on, let me go drink some tea. Excuse me. The next one is in a sleeping bag. What do you call 2 black people in a sleeping bag? A Twix.
Oh my! Can we hang on 1 second? I just wanted to get in my 2 cents. That would be necrophilia again, right in your face, because they got a ton of those jokes associating black people with chocolate. I don't know about you all, but the white people that I have been around, they talk about chocolate as though that is the greatest thing God ever created. Like I would kill my mother and father if I could get the last piece of chocolate on the planet. Just that right there, how frequently they associate black people with chocolate, lets me know a lot about necrophilic white people. That's all. Thank you. Keep rolling, Justice.
Okay. Famous black woman. Who are the 2? Okay, remember when we were talking about Aunt Jemima?
Yes, ma'am.
Gus, do you remember that? Okay. Today. Well, this is the one about it. Who are the 2 most famous black women in history? Aunt Jemima and MF.
MF? Did you say MF or what was it?
Yes. Well, it's a cuss word, but
oh, okay, got it. Okay.
Black parrot. A black guy walks into a bar with a beautiful parrot on his shoulder. Wow, says the bartender. That is really something. Where'd you get it? Africa, says the parrot. It's man.
Worth less than a squirrel.
Wow, that's okay. There is also a test that you can do on here. It's called a ghetto test, and it says if the statement is true, add the points in parentheses to your score. Scoring is not given at the bottom of the test. And yeah, it shows it. Yeah. If you would like to do the test, then yeah, but you know.
Wow.
And then there's let me see. I'm trying to see. Let's go to the next page, but loading. Okay. A picnic table and a black person. What's the difference between a picnic table and a black person? The table can support a family. Mexican on the moon. What do you call one Mexican on the moon? A problem. What do you call two Mexicans on the moon? Bigger problem. What do you call what do you call all the Mexicans on the moon? Problem solved. Yep. Black man cross the street. Why do the black man cross the street? 'Cause he's stealing your car. A Mexican without a lawnmower. What do you call a Mexican without a lawnmower? Unemployed. Behind the eyepiece of your rifle. When is the only time you concentrate on a black man? Behind the eyepiece of your rifle. Father's Day. What's the most confusing day in Harlem? Father's Day. There's a few more. Jumped off a skyscraper. A nigga and a Mexican jumped off a skyscraper at the same time. Who would hit the ground first? Who cares? Black kids. What do black kids get for Christmas? Your bike. Biggest population of Jews. Where do you find the biggest population of Jews? The atmosphere. 3 people on the Willis Tower. There are 3 people on the Willis Tower, a Mexican, American, and a British. They have to throw something off that they have too much of. The British throws down money. The Mexican throws down the burrito. What does the American throw down? The Mexican. There's more. Like I said, there's 51. There's also Jew jokes. There's a lot of jokes on here. Yeah. There's bar jokes and all that. So blonde jokes.
Wow. Yeah. Making fun of non-white people is one of their principal activities. Did you have anything else you wanted to share, Justice?
Unless if you want to hear some more racist jokes. No.
Right on. Thank you for sharing the jokes. Very revealing about the thought process of racist man and racist woman. what I'll do, I'll see if some of the folks take some of the people that called in with questions, and if you want to share some jokes, or if you have other comments, feel free to chop in. Your line should be open if you want to chime in. I'm just going to open up the lines of the people who dialed in, because I'm not really sure the order that people called. The people on the people on the free HD line, the person who called in from a blocked number, and the person who called in last 4 digits 7012. Your lines are open, and the people on the talk shoe line, I see someone called in from New York, I think. Yes, person who called in from New York, your line is open. Anybody else, if you are interested in speaking, I'll get your line as well. *8 if you're on the talk shoe line, and it's *6 if you're on the free HD line. The 3 people that called in with hands up, your lines are open.
Gus, I actually just found another one if you would like to hear. If you don't mind.
Sure.
Okay. What do you call a black man with a new bike? A thief. What do you call a black man... What do you call a black with a new caddy? A better thief. And yeah, that's it.
Trend, I think. Wow. Thank you for sharing again. Trend of white people. As I said, the other 3 people that dialed in with hands up, your lines are open if y'all had anything you wanted to share.
Greetings, can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Good evening. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, good evening to everyone. Yeah, I think it's a very appropriate topic.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir. Yes, you can. Can I be heard?
Can hear both of you.
Okay, so yeah, great topic for the program. I agree that white people love, just to get us riled up, and definitely out of codification. Hence the term "getting under their skin." They, I've experienced a couple of things with just conversating with white people. I definitely noticed a difference from the time I started listening to the program, and just use words better. There was this one situation where a white male who I know was living with a black friend of mine, and we had got on the discussion of Hitler and population control, and basically I realize that now that's something else. Seeking that white validation, I think when non-white people try to show white people that they're racist, or help white people to see that they're racist, that plays along with that white people are ignorant thing, which as was indicated is incorrect. So yeah, we just on the topic of population control, and I was just using my words and asking questions to basically try to reveal to him that he's a racist, and eventually what ended up happening was I was wearing a Heru pendant, or a Horus pendant, and completely off the topic, he says basically, I don't care what you say, and I don't care how much Horus chains you wear. Basically, you're a nigger, and it doesn't matter what you say. And that discourse concluded with him kicking me out of their residence, and the other non-white male, the black male, my friend, pretty much didn't say anything. So I learned a lot from that. but yeah, I just agree with just a lot of what's been said tonight. And it's come to the point where I just sit back and listen. I might ask a couple of questions, but I mean, definitely shouldn't get upset or be surprised in what they say or the way they think, because it's who they are. And we just got to understand that. So.
Appreciate that. I'm opening up 2 other lines. Just opening up. Person that called in from New York on the Talk Shoe line and Walking Bear. Your 2 lines are open.
Yeah, greetings. This is calling from Virginia.
Good to hear from you, sir.
Yep. I know a couple of jokes as well that I've heard over the years, and I guess the biggest thing I guess before I even say the joke is I always found it strange internet. This is back in the 80s. People, I grew up on the East Coast. People on the West Coast were saying the same jokes. And I always wondered, how did these jokes get passed around before the internet? The only thing I could think of maybe truck drivers, but it was the same exact joke. It was just on the other side of the coast. It just always amazed me. One of the jokes I remember hearing is as a child from middle school, maybe high school, was did you hear about the school bus that went over the cliff? And then they say the punchline is the sad thing was either the driver was white or there was 2 empty seats. That either way is the punchline. So, and they always say it's a busload of black kids or Hispanic kids, and then the punchline is there were 2 empty seats. And again, I've heard that when I was in the military as well, and these people didn't grow up in my little town, so how the hell did they hear sorry about that, how did they hear this same joke? And then the other jokes were what's black and red looks good on a black person, and the answer is a Doberman. And one was long and tan and looks good on a black person, and that's a rope. And these are jokes again I heard growing up in Maryland, and then end up hearing throughout my at the time young adult life in the military. And every one of them is something about mutilation, dog attacking someone, or death. Buses going over the side of a mountain.
Wow.
America, we've learned to tolerate it.
System of white supremacy. They got those jokes worldwide.
And speaking of jokes worldwide, I've been to in Britain, and when I was growing up, they had the Polish jokes, the Polak jokes, as they call them. That's the only time you hear white people making fun of other white people, at least in America. Which I haven't heard anybody make any dumb jokes about Polish people for probably about 15, if not 20 years. But in Britain, instead of it being Polish people that the jokes are about the Irish. So the Scottish and the English make fun of the Irish. And again, it was the same stupid jokes that I heard about Polish people. Like, did you hear about the 3 guys that drowned in a pickup truck? They couldn't get the back gate down. And again, that was about Polish. And then when I was in Britain, they said the same joke, but they just said lorry, which is their word for a truck. And they couldn't get the back gate of the lorry down, And again, in a pickup truck, obviously, you don't need to get it down. But again, they're Polish or Irish, therefore, that's how stupid those people are. So if they don't have us to make fun of, they will make fun of someone that looks like themselves. As long as they can find something different about them, they'll make fun of them.
Can I be heard?
I can hear you.
Who is that? Scotty Reed?
This is David out of Virginia.
I think that might have been the caller in New York. I'm not sure. If it was, we can hear you. Well, I can hear at least 3 distinct males, 909, Raz Heru, caller in Virginia, and I think caller in New York.
Greetings to all the callers. Yeah, I found those racist jokes very interesting. I think it gets down to well, what I was thinking as far as the racist jokes was themes. You know, death, just something to be devoured. You know, with the Twix, and I just think that, you know, when you have a theme, you know, it's easy to wrap around grammar. You know, that's how they come up with so many jokes. I mean, there's probably thousands of them, and, you know, you can just make them up on your own if you have, you know, the grammar to do it, and you know what your theme is going to be about. So basically, they're writing a script to say that we are to be killed, devoured, excommunicated, and they can just make thousands of jokes just behind those themes. You know, thieves and poor, stupid, and all of those themes, basically, they have written for us. They are the, you know, the writers. They've, you know, we're living a script. We're not even living our own lives. We're just living a script. Like, you have to play your role. I said this before, but, you know, they are the damsels in distress, and we are the monsters. And they just keep those themes going on. And like I said, they can come up with thousands of jokes. You know, it's Christmas time, so, you know, what do you get for Christmas? And Thanksgiving time. Any of these horror days, they can definitely enjoy themselves with the racist joke. Just like the holidays where you send a Christmas card or any type of birthday card, that's how those jokes got around, through postcards, letters, you know, communiques. Hey, you know, you want to hear this joke I just heard? And you got somebody from Virginia calling, you know, North Carolina, telling them the new joke that they heard. That's a bonding thing with the racist white supremacists. Say, hey, how you doing? You want to hear this new racist joke I heard? Of course. Let's bond. And they laugh, and laughter is no joke, man. That's a visceral response. That's the emotional, like Gus was saying, it's, you know, it's an emotional response, and it is definitely a bonding experience. So those so-called jokes are very important in the system of racism, white supremacy, and like I said, you know, the themes, and they can just wrap the grammar around the theme. So they've written our script, and unfortunately, we're playing it out in many ways. It's unfortunate, but
kind of like that movie, The Truman Show, when Jim Carrey had no clue he was on a set, but everybody else did, including his own wife or the lady that they put with him to be his wife. You know, the whole world sitting there watching and laughing, and he didn't realize, you know, this is like you said, all scripted. You know.
Tiger Woods. That was a big script. Tupac Shakur. It's all scripted, man. They wrote the script, and that's one thing we don't understand about white people is that, if I'm not correct, they the Gus's program was called How to Talk to White People. And before you get to the how, you got who, what, when, where, why, and how. And, I've written those words down on my bathroom mirror so I can always remember, that context is one of the most important things. And Dr. Wilson says, who are you, where are you, and what time is it? Those are some questions that, when you open up your notebook to do your journaling and whatnot, that you should address, and you'll always kind of have a gauge on where your mind is. And, that's just one thing I recognize right off, was that when I read the title, it said how to talk to white people. And I just thought about who, what, when, where, why. And Gus kind of broke it down, what are you trying to get, and what's your purpose, Nelly Fuller talks about that also. But I wanted to ask, I don't know if Scotty Reed is on the line, but I guess anybody can answer that question. When you talk about ignorance, I hear the word ignore, and the ants part I'm not that sure about, but if anybody has some words to say about that, because what are we saying when we say that white people are ignorant of racism, white supremacy? Are you saying that are they ignoring it, whatever you're saying, because you have no value, or are you saying that they don't know? How would you?
I think originally most people would probably think it's just that they don't know. They don't know about, we did this, we were this and that. I think that's what the average person is probably thinking. But, if you follow this program long enough and listen to enough of the episodes, you come to the conclusion that that's not possible. For example, I talk about, I grew up in Maryland, and I'm hearing, the same exact joke all the way across the country. And, then in Britain, they're saying the same jokes against Polish people, but against the Irish. And I've heard people again, I'm in the room, they'll change the joke from the N-word, black people to, either, depending on what time frame, they may not be saying Polak anymore, they may be saying dum-dum jokes, but they'll replace a busload of dum-dums, and there were 2 empty seats. And then white people telling themselves, someone will go, I didn't hear it that way. And then me getting emotional, I'm sure you didn't. Back in Montana, where, this one individual came from, I'm sure that you didn't hear that there were a busload of dum-dums. It was something else. But, again, they're not stupid. They know. And, again, how do they know? That's why I think, it's like they've had the Internet for decades or something. And they just, released it to us in the late 80s or something. It's amazing.
Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Earlier this evening, I happened to be in Target, and I was standing in the video, in the movie section, and they have Planet of the Apes now on DVD. So I'm standing by the side of the display, and I see a white gentleman come up. He's about 40-ish. And I saw him as he was approaching, which made me step to the side. And he just had this look on his face like he was so happy to see this movie was out. And he's standing there and he's looking at it and he's reading the packaging. And then a younger white male comes up, was probably around between the ages of probably about 19 to 24 years old. And he tells the younger person, you definitely need to get this movie. And the younger guy's like, oh, I heard the special effects were awesome. And he goes, no, this movie will tell you what's going on. And the younger guy's like, what? And he goes, if you don't get any other movie, you need to get this movie, and you need to get this movie today. So I'm looking, around the corner now, and he catches me overhearing them, and it was like he immediately stopped talking. So I stood there, and I said, oh, Planet of the Apes. I heard this was coming on DVD. And he said, oh, you'll probably like it. So I'm like, well, what would I like about it? And then he looks at the other guy, and he goes, no, you'll probably definitely like it. And it's probably, something that you'll probably really get into. And I just walked away. And it was more amusing to me than anything, because it just reminded me of a joke that I say to myself, a counter-racist joke. How do you know when a white person is lying? And the response is, their lips are moving. And I constantly encounter white folks who engage in this sort of transmission of the older person to the younger person, trying to teach them about how to be more codified, I guess you would say, in their efforts to continue that racist ideology and that system of domination and subjugation. And whenever I encounter it, now that I'm less confused, it's always amazing to me the amount of glee that they get and joy by standing around and watching victims who are totally unaware that they're making fun of them, that they're making jokes about them. And I'll see them, pass subtle looks and grins towards one another, when they talk, and they especially do it when they talk about sports. When a guy, Chris Paul, was unable to go from one team to another team, I was listening to some coworkers talk about it, and you could just tell in the ways in which they were talking about sports. They weren't really just talking about sports. It was just really a metaphor for them to be able to trade some really racist rants with one another. Meanwhile, my black coworkers were standing there arguing about who should go to this team and who should go to that team. And it's just pretty, liberating, if you want to call it that, to be less confused and to be able to just see the way that it works on a day-to-day basis. So I'm always mindful that when I'm around white people, to not volunteer any information whatsoever. And I know that victims have a tendency of always wanting to volunteer information or to prepare to be, to pretend to be knowledgeable about certain things. So I just tell people, as they're becoming less confused, don't be in such a rush to run around white folks and try to tell them about black people in pyramids or black people in this and black people in that. Because as anyone who visits this show page can see, white people spend a great deal of time gathering information.
I agree with that.
Well, I was just thinking, Nellie Fuller, he said that he's done, multiple interviews, and he hasn't really rated himself too high because, he's not really being, I hate to really say challenged, but I guess he feels like he kind of gets off, off point and stuff like that. Like, I never really felt that way. I enjoy it. I just appreciate, the information that he brings forth, and man, I mean, really appreciate it. Like, he's one of the. I just don't know if people really are reading his work and really understanding. Sometimes I see white people, they kind of put their heroes on a pedestal. Christopher Hitchens just died and whatnot, and it's like, oh, we got to hear about how great he is, and this dude was an alcoholic, you know what I'm saying? He just talked all kind of racist rhetoric, but man, white people, they put him up, you know what I'm saying? He's all on he's on every, meme that you can, access right now. So yeah, I definitely think that Nelly Fuller he should be, just like Dr. Wilson's always saying, like, have you given credit to Nelly Fuller? Have, are these white people stealing his ideas and stealing his concepts and whatnot? So I hold that in high regard, him saying that he hasn't really rated himself that high. So basically, I'm just right now trying to, and I guess I'll just ask Gus directly, the word ignorance. How are we defining that? Because like I said, I'm hearing the word ignore. So when you say white people are not ignorant, I just would like to hear a definition from you of that word, or term, ignorance. Are they ignoring it, or how do you see it?
Yes, since directed to me, I'll let folks know we have about 20 minutes or so left in the program. If anybody, it's a lot of folks listening in. If anybody thinks that they have a question or comment they would like to get in, you should do so now. I'm trying not to do sliding in at the last minute. If you're on the TalkShoe line, it's *8 if you have a question. If you're on the Free HD line, it's *6 if you have a question. The number, if you want to dial in, 760-569-7676, and the code is 564-943#. The person who called in just one-on-one, your line is open, and I'll answer 909's question. Okay, I'm not hearing too much background. Oh, hang on just one. I want to answer 909's question, and then if you have questions or comments, you can get yours in. 909's question about ignorant. I would say, number one, this is not the codified procedure. The codified procedure is you snatch the person who used the term ignorant, and I for sure have not been saying that white people are ignorant. So the correct procedure would be to any of the people who have been saying that they think the problem is that white people are ignorant, is to ask them, what do you mean when you say ignorant, and what is it specifically that you think white people are ignorant about? That would be my codified procedure for how I would deal with it. Just my 2 cents, even though I didn't use the term, my 2 cents in terms of the word ignore, and saying, I think, when people use the term, I think what they mean is that they believe that someone does not have information, or you said the term ignore is a base part of the word ignorant, that they are choosing to ignore, or choosing to not be aware, or choosing to not inform themselves about something. If, I cannot highlight that enough, if that's what people mean when they say that white people are ignorant about this, that, and the other, I disagree. I just don't see evidence that white people are missing some information that's resulting in them practicing white supremacy. I don't see evidence that white people are willfully ignoring information which is resulting in them practicing white supremacy. What I see is white people, as Mr. Fuller said, investigating, exploring every nook and cranny of the universe to help them better practice white supremacy. I see them doing the exact opposite of ignoring. Now, they do lie a lot, absolutely, but I don't really see any evidence of white people ignoring or being ignorant, resulting in them practicing white supremacy. But again, I haven't said this, so the procedure would be to ask any of the people who have said or who continue to say that they think the problem is white people being ignorant. That would be my response to the question. If anybody else wants to pitch in, feel free. Just one-on-one, your line is open. And then we had a question from another caller as well. Anybody else have anything on that? White people being ignorant? Did that answer the question, 909? I guess I'll ask that first. Did that answer the question, 909? Am I being heard?
I'm sorry, I did.
I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just talking, but I had my phone on mute. Yeah, I said I was saying I agree with you 100%. They're not ignorant of anything. They're focused on it. They have a laser focus on racism, white supremacy. They're not ignoring a thing, and they're not ignorant of racism, white supremacy. So, yeah, I agree with you. So I just wanted to say that it's the total opposite of ignorance. They're focused on it. They worship it. And I'm done.
Just one-on-one? Did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, first I just want to thank Gus and all the callers. Because I feel that like this is the most constructive program I've ever, heard and probably the most constructive program you could ever listen to. So I just want to thank you a lot. Thank you so much for even starting this program. And next, I just want to say, when you look at a movie like Gran Torino, a lot of racist jokes were thrown around in that movie. And you know what? When I think of racist jokes, I think racist jokes are actually to gauge your codification. To gauge how codified you are. Because if you think about, like, racist jokes, the people that are the most codified, like most of the people on the program, like all of us, when you hear a racist joke, it doesn't really affect you that much because you're codified. It doesn't really affect you because you know who you are. You have a clear goal, and you know what you stand for and everything. And it kind of reminds me of it was like two white people on Gran Torino. Like I think he was teaching, or he's trying to show them the Hmong kid, I guess the non-white kid, how people bond in America, and it's funny that he chose racist jokes to bond, to teach them how to bond. He went into like a bar shop, and people, they were calling each other Polak and you dirty Irish and you dirty Italian, but it was like they were joking about it. So it's interesting because it shows how codified they are. How codified they are that they can actually joke about it. You know what I mean? So imagine if, but so like if people that get the most, I'm just trying to say the people that get the most, excited and confused about these jokes it really are the people that are less confused, or actually most confused, I'm sorry, and that are less codified. So that's one thing that's really important that I found.
Sadly, that's probably 98% of us who haven't gotten to the level that we are now. So that means most of our family members, most of the non-white people we interact with are in that same position. They're not certified, so they're going to react to every single thing they see or hear.
Yeah, which is real unfortunate because it kind of like slows down the process of becoming universal man, universal woman, which is what we all should be striving for. And I was actually doing like some research and stuff because I like to do a lot of reading. And it was something called a model minority, which was which Asian people were looked at as the model minority in America for a while. And as I did research, I found out that actually African people specifically West African people, Nigerians, and people, Ghanaian people, in that area, are now considered the so-called model minority because they have the highest educational attainment of any minority group in this country. And it's funny how that can shift. You know what I mean? It shifts like that. But I noticed the reason that people need to do well in this country. A lot of non-white people and white people do well in this country is because they're codified. The most codified people do the best. They don't let these jokes distract them or anything like that. They just do what they have to do without focusing on a lot of things because they're codified and, their focus is on what they have to do. And then, they almost move without white people, being anywhere in their lives at all. You know what I mean?
I understand what you're saying on that.
Yeah. Everybody. That's the key. That's the key to like destroying, the system. And that's the key to, it's the key to success. Is actually just being codified.
One thing I will add to what you just said, though, even I guess during the '60s, when there were African immigrants in the States, they weren't treated the same way African Americans were treated. They weren't treated the way Negroes born in America were treated. They were considered different. Therefore, they were, for example, they might be able to go into a hotel that a black person wasn't allowed to unless you were, shining shoes or the bag.
Absolutely. And you know why that was though? I'm going to explain that because I'm glad you brought that up because one thing I want to say on the last program, but I'm going to say it on this program, is that, a lot of things that people say is very, very revealing. Like a lot of things that, so-called white people say is very revealing. Like my parents are actually from another country, and they're from another country, Liberia. I'm pretty sure you guys know that country, right?
Yep.
Yeah, they're from that country, and when they came to the U.S., a lot of Africans were treated differently because, you have to remember, a lot of immigrants are very codified. You understand? And they're treated differently because they're looked at as people that are outside of the so-called American culture. So they, and what white people like to do is divide non-white people. They do that very, very decisively. Now, I work at a cell phone company, and I had some patrons come in, and it happened to be a white couple. And one thing they mentioned is that, they liked the fact that I was really polite and everything like that. But they mentioned one thing to me that I didn't really forget. Because I live in Philly now. They said, and I'm new to Philly, so they were like, I told them that I was new to Philly, and they were like, you know what? I really like you. They, but I want you to. I want to tell you something. They kind of like almost like they're telling me a secret. Be careful when you go to. Now this is African American communities, because African American communities, they think that Africans look down upon them, so they're going to discriminate against you. Now that was very, very revealing in itself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, divide, conquer. Yep.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that's very important to remember.
They want the same thing. They used to say, well, people in Africa don't look at you all as brothers.
Exactly.
They hear that from white people all the time. I was like, well, first of all, they had never been to Africa, and where are they getting this information from? This is pre-internet again, but
yeah, but I'm going to tell you, it's the total opposite. The Africans actually do look at Black Americans as brothers. It's just that when they come to America, they're just confused at of the cultural difference is a little different. You know what I mean? So they're just confused about certain things that African Americans do when it comes to America. Because a lot, because they're basically talking about the less codified African Americans. Like you said, there's 99% of African Americans are less codified. Now think about that. If more African Americans were codified, they would be actually where they actually are supposed to be in this country. You know what I mean? The immigrants that come here, they're not actually supposed to, like African Americans are not supposed to be doing any or even want to aspire to have any job that an immigrant does. They're supposed to be CEOs actually above, white Americans in this country. You know what I mean? Now, because Black Americans, they actually the first president in America was Black. You got to do research on that. But yeah, Black Americans, they were, before this country ever started, it was just white Americans and Black Americans that could become citizens of everything. You know what I mean? And they both built the country side by side. So if anybody should be side by side at this point economically, is Black Americans and so-called white Americans, so-called Black Americans. But it's all about codification. You know what I mean? And the more you look into it, white Americans themselves are not as united as people think, because white Americans, there's no such thing as a codified white American. Politically there is, but if you break them all up, white Americans are actually more of a minority, breaking them up all up into ethnicities, Italian, Irish, you know what I mean, English, than African American. You know what I mean? So if you break them up in ethnicities, it's less of them than others. But and another thing I want to say.
Hang on 1 second, caller, because we did have someone who had a question. I want to make sure we get the caller's question in before we run out of time. The person called in with a question. Your line should be open. Did you have a question that you wanted to get in before we run out of time on the program?
Yeah.
What's your question, sir?
My question is, what can non-people do besides talk nice to white people when non-white people are handling business?
Was the question, what can non-white people do besides talking nice?
No.
When?
Yeah.
What can non-white people do besides talking nice to white people when non-white people are handling business? That was the question?
Yeah.
Okay. I guess, well, when you say talking nice, what do you mean when you say talking nice?
Being polite, maybe?
See, now, if this was a white person, there would be no help. Like, if this had been a white person, I would have probably fussed at whoever just said that and been like, shut up, don't say anything, but don't help them with the answer. But I think this is a younger victim, so I will be cool with helping a younger victim. So when you say talking nice, do you mean what the caller just said? Do you mean being polite, trying to use a nice voice, or, I used the term. Do you mean using a friendly tone when you speak to white people, so it sounds like that you're not upset with them, not angry? Is that what you mean when you say talking nice?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay. Cannot emphasize, if that had been a white person or even an older non-white person, I wouldn't have said a word. I would have waited for that person to explain. That's just being codified, because if you're using terms and you can't explain them, I suspect you don't know what you're talking about, and it's going to be very hard for me to know what you're talking about if you don't know what you're talking about. But things non-white people can do that are constructive besides talking nice. If you're trying to get a constructive result, one of the things that I do, try to listen closely. I think that is a very underrated skill, being an attentive listener, because a lot of times if you're talking to white people or anyone who's trying to be deceptive, one thing that they do not want you to listen closely to what they are saying. If you are listening very closely, try to pay attention to every word that they're saying. And remember it, write it down if you need to. You can take notes. Really try to pay attention and listen to the best of your ability when talking to a white person, because a lot of times, if they're giving you good information, that's great. If they are lying to you, if they're trying to mistreat you, and you listen very closely, I think you will probably pick it up. You'll probably understand, wait a minute, this person, they are saying one thing and then they'll come say something else that's totally different. They're trying to confuse me, maybe even lie to me. I would say listen closely. That's one thing that you can do. Let's see, one other thing. Talking to a white person and you're trying to have a constructive result, you can speak nicely. Not name calling. That's something that I try to do. Not name calling. Try to ask questions to move things along. I think we were saying earlier, and what I mean with that, asking questions to get to what it is that you want. I think 909, he was talking about how to talk to white people, why you're talking to a white person. Use words to try to get what it is that you want. Right? So if you are talking to your teacher and you need information from your teacher to help you finish, some work that you're doing, just asking questions that's going to get right to the point. Like, this is what I need, bang. Like, you really don't want, in my opinion, you don't want to waste a lot of time talking to white people about things that are not going to help you. So trying to just get right to what it is that you need. If you're a non-white person, use words to get exactly what you need that will be constructive and helpful when talking to white people. Those would be some of the things I would recommend. Listen closely. Use words to get constructive help that you need. Those would be two things. And yeah, you can be courteous. That's another one that I try to use. I am in a weak position, so I try to be courteous to not have unnecessary conflict to cause myself trouble. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Any of the other callers? Any suggestions on things that you can do to when you're talking to a white person so that you'll have a constructive result?
I would add, do not offer any unnecessary information if it does not pertain to what it is that you're dealing with, whatever the business is at hand. Try not to deviate or try not to get off of the topic that's being discussed. If you're dealing with your teacher and you're, for instance, talking about science, stick to talking about science. Don't allow yourself to get drawn into discussing math or discussing history or discussing anything else other than the answers to that particular science question. Stay focused on the science if you're talking about science. Because one of the things that a lot of white people do is they'll distract you and get you to talk about other things other than what it is that you need to focus on. So stay focused on the topic.
Agreed.
Yep.
I'll try that tomorrow.
Only thing I would add is that define your terms, because I know how to be nice, and nice comes with a lot of yes. When you're being nice, you say yes a lot, and you're agreeing a lot, and so there's time to be nice, time to be not nice, or you're saying no. No, that's not what I'm talking about. No, that's, I don't agree with those terms. Like the caller just was saying, we're not on the point. So, if they count money out, you can be nice. Yes, oh, yep. Yeah, another day, another 50, another dub. That's real. You could be nice then, but if they not, if it's a hassle where they not, you're not getting what you are trying to get, then that's not the time to be saying yes. because you're just slowly going down a white supremacist basic quagmire where you ain't gonna get what you want being nice, because you're saying yes, yes, yes to nonsense. So, define your terms. What do you mean by being nice? And there's a time to be nice, and there's a time not to be, especially when you're doing business. You can't say yes to everything, especially when you're doing business. So I would say that nice word, the word nice and yes are a bit synonymous. So yeah, you don't want to be a yes man in those type of situations.
I would also add that if you know that you're going to be having a conversation with a white person, try to take some time before the conversation to go through what your answers and responses would be to certain questions. I mean, some things may not be as predictable as others, but always try to work through the conversation prior to having the conversation, even if you may need to write your answers down, because sometimes if you write down your answers and response, and while you're writing them down, say them out loud, because you can better retain them, and be clear about the situations that you will not discuss. Be very clear about them so that when those situations come up, there are red flags to you, so you know to not go down that road of having that discussion. I mean, if it's something like you're in an office place and you're clear that that's not a particular place where you should be discussing, for instance, politics or romantic relationships, then be clear that if politics or romantic relationships comes up, that is not an area that you're going to have a conversation about. If they begin to initiate a discussion about those things, become quiet, listen to the context of what they're saying and how they're phrasing it to you, and if they ask you any direct questions or solicit you to engage in conversation about that particular thing, do not comply.
I also have some suggestions. Many of the listeners that I gave gave suggestions, you said that don't go off subject. Stay on subject. Even if the white person, goes off subject, you stay on subject. And also one of the main points is you stay calm. Even if the white person gets all uncomfortable and mad or upset, start talking loud and stuff. You need to focus on yourself. You stay calm. If the white person says, well, can you please repeat the question again? You can repeat it, but you need to stay calm. Okay, you don't want to be like the white person. Okay, you want to be calm and just be like your original self. And those are all the suggestions that I have. And does anybody else have any suggestions? And I'm gonna mute my line.
Well, I would add, watch out for when a white person says to you, "You don't understand." Because when a white person says that to you, that's usually a trigger that makes a person who's a victim try to start to explain. That's usually a trigger to make a person who's a victim to try to justify or rationalize some information. When a white person says you don't understand, agree with them and say, perhaps I don't, so why don't you explain it to me? Do not fall for that trick. I fell for it many times when I was more confused. If a white person says you don't understand, immediately say, perhaps you're right. Why don't you explain it to me? Even if you do understand, let them clarify. Do not offer any additional information, because I have found that white people find that very amusing.
I would just go back to what, when, where, why, and like the title of the show, how to talk to white people. Somebody says to me like, you don't understand. I don't understand what. I don't understand how. I don't understand when. I don't understand who. I don't understand where. It's just like, I mean, what part of, I mean, what am I missing? And what piece of the puzzle don't I have? And even if you don't ask that person, if you think they're being deceptive, you've got to have, those fundamentals of grammar in your mind. What, when, where, why, and how. I just think that for me, that's just been a very useful tool and constructive tool, and dealing and living in this system of racism, white supremacy, staying on task, and like Justice said, staying focused, which is you're calm. If you're talking about romance, and I'm trying to get my my tires on my car. You start talking about romance. You want to talk about ignorance. I don't hear none of that. I don't even. I mean, I've become a master of ignoring things. I mean, it's like it's irrelevant. I don't know what you're talking about. When are my tires gonna be on my car, and what time can I pick it up? I mean, that's basically all I want to know. And I'll be as polite as possible, but I'm trying to get a when, what time. That's it. I don't know what that other top deviation was about. I'm not concerned about it. It has nothing to do with me. What, when, where, why, and how. That's it. That's the first. That's the first pieces of for me. That's the first pieces, which is the grammar. Then I use that. I use that to go into the logic. If there's any contradictions, any logical fallacies, you're not going to get to logic. You're not going to be able to put those pieces together and have a running engine or whatever the piece. If there's a piece to an engine, the engine is not going to be running if there's all kind of contradictions and logical fallacies and things like that. So you have to focus on the grammar and have agreement on terms, because I notice when black people get to talking, non-white people get to talking, there's so many words that are interjected in the dialogue that never have been brought up before. We're talking about one thing, and then all of a sudden there's just a whole new term pop up, and nobody stops and says, what, it's a lot of confusion. So I think we need to focus on the what, when, where, why, and how, and really the grammar and agreement on terms. If not, the white racist white supremacists, male and female, are going to always be at an advantage.
Hang on one second. We are at the conclusion of the program. I got momentarily distracted because they're doing a piece on MSNBC about Ray Gricar, the district attorney who did not prosecute Jerry Sandusky in 1998, who went missing and was declared legally dead this year. They were doing a piece on what happened to him and them thinking it's foul play. If you're interested, that's on right now. You can probably get the replay online. It was on NBC. If you're interested, anybody listening in, if anybody has a sentence that they want to get in before we close, I want to wrap things up. We've done our 3 hours plus. Before, and I mean a sentence, not anything long. If it's anything just quick that you want to get in, a quick tidbit. Thank you to Cree7. Cree, was listening to the program and gave me a sound check. Thank you kindly. Cree7.wordpress.com. Once again, Cree7.wordpress.com. Anybody, quick sentence or two that they need to get in before we close out?
Just follow the logic.
Same here.
Yeah, it's not a sentence, but I would say for anybody that's interested, look into neurocardiology. It will tell you a lot about racism, white supremacy. That just understanding that that connection between the brain and the heart.
Neurocardiology. There you go. Something to research. As Dr. Kanban says, investigate as much as you can in helping to solve this problem, racism, white supremacy, white people. As Mr. Fuller said, they go to the bottom of the ocean, study everything to maintain the system. We should do likewise to get rid of them. Anybody want to do our prayer to close the program? And again, Dr. Welsing, her sister, is in critical condition. If anybody wants to do the prayer, if you could include that. If it's not too much bother, that would be great. Anybody on the line want to do the prayer?
I can. We give honor and thanks to the ancestors, and we ask that you extend your grace and mercy to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing and her family during this time of trials and tribulations. We ask that you be with the physicians and those who are providing care for her sister. We ask that you instruct them so that they can conduct themselves in a proper and correct way in providing care for her. We ask that you continue to keep and guide each and every one of us as we become more informed. We ask that you enable us to remain to be codified, to be constructive and productive, to doing all that we can to end the global system of racism, white supremacy immediately. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Context of white supremacy signing out. We will be back on Sunday, December 18th. Dr. Niana Rasayon, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Context of white supremacy signing out. The problem is not ignorance. The problem is white people. Thank you all for tuning in.